All right, I'll go ahead and call the Nottingham Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 to order. Before we begin, I'll have every member introduce themselves, beginning on my right.
Skip Severance.
John Moore.
Edward Veal.
Drew Stevens. Doug Cummings.
Larry Haney, SRPC.
Mrs. Bascom indicated she would not be here tonight. Our land use clerk, Alana, is also not here tonight. Mr. Evans, I have not heard from, but at the moment, there are 5 members present, so any votes will be a total count of 5. Public hearings, there are no public hearings scheduled for tonight, so we're going to use this as kind of a workshop meeting. We can jump right in. So we have a couple of things. One thing not on the agenda is we received we had a conditional approval for an application. One of the conditions was review by town council. So we did get a response from town council. Alana might have put it in your packets. I would suggest when we get to that point, we can either do that first or after, but we should go into non-public to discuss that and then go from there. Council also, I'd also sent out the review of the amended items that we were potentially going to continue to work on tonight, which were setbacks, pre-existing non-conforming lots, addressing some of the other cleanup areas with some definitions, the commercial zone, removing residential or housing, turning it to structures, and then the steep slopes, the draft, they provided comment on that as well. So those were the items that we had kind of verbiage on already. And then we have some other items that we can discuss. Other items on the agenda, if we get to it, we are keeping a placeholder for site plan subdivision regulations review. I do not foresee us getting to those tonight. Information on the HOP grant, discussion on our budget. We probably should move that first to get that one out of the way. So the order I would suggest we work on this is, let's tackle the budget item, then go to non-public to review council's information, and then we can go from there. Any objections to or questions on that? All right, so did our budget get included?
The first case / other. So it's like, yeah, I think that blew it.
There we go. So in the packet, Alana put it under case / other for our budget. So we touched upon this a little bit in November. We just didn't move forward with any kind of vote on pushing a budget forward just because we hadn't had it on the agenda officially. I think we could have moved forward anyway, but just to be on the safe side, we pended it to tonight. So there's not much at the moment. You know, it shows you what our budget was for '24, what we've actually spent, and then, you know, anything that's kind of remaining. Some of these are offset, which is notated now on the right. So we have a bit of money remaining. One note is obviously the planner costs. That's an annual contract, but our contract, the way we budget it and what we've expended so far is based on partially the last contract that went through in June, and then the current contract, July through to December, but our contract runs until end of June of '25. So that's for our planner services from SRPC. There was some information about some of the costs that we've kind of gotten back from cases, which I think is on the next page. So some mailing fees, I think that's $1,600 mailing fees, the public hearing notice costs, the escrow, and actual SRPC costs. So I think about $2,500 so far has been paid for in review by the applicants. So that gives you an idea within those cases of what kind of numbers we might be looking at. So we can either go line by line, or if anybody has any kind of questions or motion on here, I believe the only area that we've talked about potentially changing is the SRPC membership dues. That was removed by, I think, the select board or budget committee last year. We were dues paying member for 1 year. we're not currently dues paying members, so we don't have votes as representatives on a number of matters within the regional planning, and there's some other services we lose out on, and then our contract hourly rate is higher because of that as well. I think we're one of 2 towns still that doesn't have currently pay dues. Is that, do you know that, Blair? Is that still the same? I would think it was Brookfield, a town of 700 or so.
Yeah, that's, yes.
That were the 2, yeah. That were like the 2 towns that don't pay into the,
Yeah, that's a good question.
yeah.
So, and we're gonna talk about it, I know it's coming up on the HOP grant.
Yep.
Can that money be used to pay for SRPC dues?
I don't think it, not for, and Blair can correct me on this, so I'm sure SRPC is going to be getting to us information. Blair will speak a little bit more towards the HOP grant later as to what that process might look like, and there's gotta be a plan in place and deliverables back to the organization that provides the grant. So I don't think that could be used for their service. It could be used for some of the, like if we, with the master plan chapters and things like that, yes. That would-
Contract work, hourly?
I would think that's how it works out. It might be, I don't know if it's project-based or.
It's a
if
project that's not to exceed, so.
I gotcha.
The grant was for, I don't know, 31 and change, something like that.
Yeah.
And, that has to, go towards what we identified in the application, which is essentially long-range planning work for housing. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the master plan a lot with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna help with certain chapters and portions of the master plan.
Stop the presses!
Welcome, Mr. Evans. 7:07, Mr. Evans is present, so now any votes that are taken will be a total count of 6.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So we're just going over, at the moment, we're just working on
Like he's been to a fun.
the planning board budget, so we can move forward with that and get that to the select board. So we were going through, basically, I don't think there's any change needed for the planner costs, the postage, printing, dues, conferences. We've gone slightly over on the dues, because obviously we've had some new members, so. I think that's why originally, I think we had that number higher, and then it was reduced. Publications, deeds, advertising, I guess those all don't have a dollar
Case
amount
of
assigned, so
I don't know if
I would
the
suggest
colours
probably
are-
putting a number in those.
There you go. I think he's going.
Office
into that.
supplies is the one area that I believe would fall under equipment, or planning board equipment, there we go. That one, we have a suggestion to add $750 to that for a new laptop for land use clerk. The current laptop is, I think, over 10 years old. So that cost would be split between the planning board and the zoning board.
Which line was that in?
Yeah, I wish they had numbers. Planning board equipment. So current, in last year's budget, there was nothing,
Okay, there's nothing there now.
so we were suggesting $750 specifically with the memo of that is to be split with the zoning board. They would also have a $750 line item.
That is listed on your, on the Board of Selectmen, we're going over the budget, that is listed on there under the planning board,
Perfect.
so it's already there.
Okay.
Is it $750 already split for a $1,400 laptop, or is it a $750 laptop? we
$750.
split?
We were actually even in discussions changing that too, because the fact that, I mean, where we're gonna budget line that item from
Yeah,
is because everybody needs new computers. I mean, it doesn't matter which part, the budget, everybody in the whole building needs new computers. Cause they're all so old and so outdated, and this needs to be upgraded, so that money's is going in somewhere, but Alana will get a new computer either.
Yeah, so it
split
seems-
between
it seemed appropriate.
750, or if it goes from another line item, it's
Yeah.
gonna be in there.
But it's inappropriate to me, since it's our
Oh,
functions
completely,
are
yeah.
specific to the planning board, zoning board, for us to budget that. But yeah, my understanding is the quote was just under 1,500. Mileage, also a bunch of things that don't have items. We tend to keep the planning board legal services with a dollar amount in there in case we ever do need legal review, or legal, assistance beyond individual case review. And then the reimbursing, engineering reimburse, I don't think we have to put a dollar amount on that, 'cause we get that money. We get that money, from the applicant before we sign the contracts.
So according to this, on legal fees, legal services, no money has been spent.
Yeah, I think there's probably gonna be a discussion at some point with select board or town administrator and our council to try to track some of those costs.
Yeah.
And then a suggestion is that on our notices of decision, if anytime we're saying we're gonna put something out for a legal review, you know, pending legal review, like HOA documents, deeds, things like that, that we, again, add a line or reiterate that, with cost borne by applicant, so that we can charge some of that back.
So, Ed, in our fee schedule, you know, I know like we send stuff, for review to the, well, you just sent a lawyer to Susan Lowry for, a letter.
Yep.
To, look at some of the wording that was proposed and discussed. You know, so I don't, is there, but, for applicants, is there a fee charged to applicant for their part of, like, if they have to review an HOA or something like that?
I don't believe that's being done. It probably should be being done, but we do have the verbiage in our subdivision regs, to allow for that.
Okay,
But we just haven't been specifying it, and we haven't been requesting council kind of provide the granularity like the way SRPC does now for tracking purposes of, you know, case whatever, you know, 4 hours planned, reviewed of a 50-page submission, things like that. So that's something we're gonna have to keep working with, town administrator and the town council to see if we can start getting that kind of granularity back, so we can.
should we put that fee in our schedule for if that's a obligation of, you know, a part of the plan?
Yeah, well, I see what you're saying, so like a specific dollar amount. If we know what the dollar amount is per hour, I think that's one way to tackle it, but the other way is, same thing we do with engineering review is, you know, it's at the will of the board, and the cost is gonna be borne by the applicant. So, I think longer term, if we can have that level of detail on the applications, sure, like that, I think it's helpful for people to know, like, how many hours and the billable hours that will occur, and I guess it's not gonna be 15-minute increments like SRPC does. It'll be, half-hour blocks at a time, but,
And we just did it, right? We
just
just
did.
used their services, for the town council.
correct, yeah, we use them often enough. So there's two ways we use town council currently, or frequently. One is planning board services, meaning review of zoning ordinance items, things like that, that we might be changing, or help with, review of a question that comes up during a case.
Right.
But it's more for the planning board's purpose, not the applicant. Then the second part is things where we're sending things for town council review that are from the applicant, like, again, the ones I can think of off the top of my head. HOA documents, deed restriction, deeds, covenants, those kind of things where they're written by lawyers, they're reviewed by lawyers.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know how that gets billed back. I don't know how the budget works with the town and council as to, there might just be a certain number of hours or a certain budget that they go by. But that would be something to continue to work with, going forward.
The next line down, I think, covers that, except you're right, I don't think it includes legal.
It does, and that's engineering. I mean, that was one or two cases of,
But it's already there, that's the reimbursable,
yeah.
the revenue offset line.
Oh, correct. So, yes, to your
So
point.
it's there, it's just, what is there may not be complete.
So you really don't need a dollar
We just
amount.
had them review the slopes, the ADUs.
That would be
They
us.
they got back to you already.
Thank you.
With some good information.
I had my
and
hand
that's
over
something
it.
that the planning board would have to pay.
Theoretically.
Glad you're here.
Yes, theoretically. yeah.
So that may be where that $500 amount is now.
Hey, free
And
pins.
maybe that's not sufficient, because, you know, depends on the caseload and everything else, but, you know, we utilize their services half a dozen times a year, so for the board itself, you know. As complex cases come in, or, you know, there's always unique things that someone finds or proposes, or interprets something slightly different, then it makes, you know, the board sometimes errs and on side caution and just gets a review and checks it, so. So I think we're good for most of our numbers. Again, the equipment, add that line item in, the do we try to add back in the, SRPC membership? I had that number at the last meeting, and now I've lost it. It's, I think, $6,800. I did not write it down, so I apologize, I had it.
Who is the planning board planner?
That's,
That's Blair.
Essentially me, yeah.
that's,
Oh, okay, good, all right.
Or is that Lana?
no, so we used to actually have, no, the
the
planning board,
board's
so the
secretary.
planning board salary secretary, that line, we've tried changing to say land use clerk. And then planning board planner / contract planner, that's our contract for SRPC. Some of these budget names or line items haven't been changed in a long time. I don't even know what the process is for changing those.
Ed, what I don't see here, I guess, unless I'm blind, is the person that takes the notes for us,
The minutes.
whatever her name is,
Yeah, there's someone new taking the minutes
minutes, yeah.
from the recordings, as long as the recordings are
Yeah.
good.
Is that in here?
I don't know, I'm not certain if that's now,
Part of the line?
that's new, so I don't know if that's taken out of the, planner piece.
I got the budget in the car.
That person might be shared.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, but there's only one line for, planning board salary secretary.
Yeah, so I don't know how the town is, if they're splitting that, or if it's a town cost, like, 'cause
Yeah.
select board, zoning board, planning board, I don't know, whatever boards are using that service.
Yeah,
that
that
person.
service. Yeah, I just didn't see it here, so I was.
No, that's a good question, and I don't know, that was obviously a fairly recent item, and hadn't been on here before, so. So I guess if I was to make suggestions, obviously, publications, I think that's that's obviously I think our land use regulation books, so I would suggest probably throwing $100 back into there. The dues for conferences, we're on that item. I would say $100 to $200, $150, just to make sure that there's enough, because again, we have new members. I don't know what next March will look like for individuals, but I encourage, try to make sure there's enough money there, so people are encouraged to utilize those options, no matter how long you've been on the board. Registry deeds.
On that,
Registry deeds, I'm not saying why there's a cost there and why that's not offset, that might be an offset. And then advertising, obviously, that's paid by the applicant, that's why that number's, I don't think we need to have line items in there. So I would suggest bumping dues, conferences, maybe to 150, publications to 100. And then equipment, add 750 with a memo, we can add notes later as to what that's for. And then the, probably the last one would be, in my opinion, at the moment, is if we add the SRPC contract back in, at cost. Or not, and that's a board decision.
I think that would be a good idea. We are using their services essentially for free in some cases, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
Or the other towns in the region are paying for us, right? Carrying our weight essentially.
yeah, so all the regional planning commissions offer, they do a lot more than just, individual town stuff. There's a lot that they get involved with that is regional planning and assistance and.
You travel with our
Right,
budgets,
so-
do you?
It's all about the money.
keeps it under his pillow.
Ah, he studies them at night. He has it with his coffee in the breakfast morning.
All the things I wanna complain about.
I've got it.
It's all up there.
I got the number. I knew I had it. So our share, and it's done by population, that's how it's calculated, so it's population of a town, splits it up. So if Nottingham were to be a dues paying member, again, the cost would be $6,856.18, so $68.60.
Come on, that's gotta be doable. That's not crazy money.
It is crazy to the budget committee, yes.
Yes,
But if that's something we want, we ought to put it in.
I agree.
They can take it out if they so choose.
So Mr. Moran, it appears that our town spending went down on this year by $600,000.
That's incorrect, but okay. Well, you asked me a question that appears, and I just told you were wrong, but,
Okay.
so,
Is
next
the-
question, keep going.
So is the town spending higher, because this tax rate that was set has dropped, correct?
That was probably due to the state, yeah, and other things.
So the state lists the
Our
town.
budget is, we're gonna come pretty close to breaking even. I mean, really close to breaking even for what we, our default budget. So we don't have any extra money in our account, so. Why,
Okay,
you're asking why the tax rate went down?
yes.
It's probably because of the values of the houses and stuff, and how the state changed with that, that's why it went down. But when we do our reval next year, as we were talking earlier, and your values go up, that number should go down again.
Again.
Because your values are gonna increase. But I think that was just an adjustment for that
So
reason.
the town spending has stayed the same.
Yes, we don't have a surplus of 600 grand in our budget.
Okay, all right, I just saw that, and when I looked at the tax rates for by the state, from the Department of Revenue, they listed the total assessment value of the town, and then they listed the total town spending, and that is the basic, essential calculation of, here's the spending divided by the tax base, and here's the tax rate.
Yeah, spending towards, that because of our budget, our town, $4 million, our school, 14 million, whatever. Because we're both on default budgets, we can only spend this much, so that's probably why the rate went down $1.
Okay.
Is it only half as well? Is that how it gets reported? Like, is the?
Yeah, I don't know the full, how the whole math works out to how they do it. But that's probably why,
I know a
'cause-
lot about it, actually. I would like to tell everybody here that, we have $12,600,000 of new real estate in this town.
As of when? You say new for 24?
For the 24, for the 23, 24 tax calculation. So as of April 1st of this year, there was, when the tax assessments are done, there was 12,600,000 or so of new real estate in town. That's new homes. A particularly large part of that is the condos up on
Route 4.
Route 4. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, go
And,
ahead. I'll
and-
complete you.
Thank you. You complete me.
Yeah, but so that's understandable, but we should also say that was a hard job you guys had, John. And you did it. You went the whole year and you stayed with that budget.
Well, only reason.
Well done.
Well, the reason why we stayed with that budget is because the fire department's down 2 full-time employees, the police department's down employees, so we had extra money. If everybody was fully staffed, and with the storms and everything that we had, we might not have made it.
Oh, no kidding.
But so we,
Say thank you.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
right, but if things were changed in different circumstances, we would have been.
Did we just hire a police officer? I thought you might have found one.
No, we're still down one.
Okay.
Right. So, anyway, I did see that there was a drop in the town spending on the Department of Revenue, tax calculation form, which I have a copy of, which I can share with everybody. But the other part of the equation is that our tax base went up, and that's attributed to new construction. So there's a benefit to the taxpayer to having additional housing in this town. It increases the tax base, and because of a $12 million increase in our tax base, our property taxes have gone down. The rate has gone down this year, so.
Tough to calculate the impact on the town, though. That's always the argument, right? So you got, on those new homes, you got $12 million worth of real estate, but what was the impact on the school, on the fire department, on the police department? They don't really know.
Well, it's all.
Before we get back, do we want to stick with what we're talking about is on the budget?
Well,
Yeah,
it's-
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Planning board stuff?
The question came to, if we saved 600,000, can some of that be dedicated towards the planning board, which is raising the tax base or helping to create this tax base of, real estate here that's helping the town? That's all I'm saying.
Well, because getting back to the legal things here, we have in there that the figure for the planning board was actually spent was about $19,000. says, legal services, we have zero, but there was, planning board legal, oh, that's the engineering, never mind, wrong line item.
I was gonna say.
That was for engineering and stuff.
I saw.
No, wrong one, they're right next to each other.
People start to panic there, what are you doing?
Both ones, but yeah, they had the notes of the $500.
Right.
Board-specific legal inquiries. I think that's also due to the fact that when they all come in, they just get pulled in a bunch of all the legal.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have everything separated for what went planning board legal, what went this legal, what went this legal.
Yeah.
You know, if zoning needed legal, is that going under zoning planning is, you know, that's something we'd have to talk about Betsy, if she could do that to make it so where,
No, and I think the big thing right now, I think, for going forward for planning purposes is, again, the areas that would be already falling under legal reimbursement offsetting revenue would to be start to bill that, some of that, those items back to the applicant as relevant. So again, HOA documents, covenants, deed reviews, things like that, that are drafted generally by the applicant's lawyers, have to be reviewed by our council. You know, some of that cost should be put back, but we just need to work with our council to, again, come up with a process like we do with our SRPC of how they track that and, bill it back.
I do think we need to have a fee or notation in our fee schedule that, you know, if there is a large amount of you know, I mean, if they're reviewing a 60-page HOA document, that's not gonna be, take them 15 minutes.
Yeah, and they'll have an idea
And-
of the cost of that because they've already had their legal.
I mean,
I think they'll have a pretty good idea of, like, unlike the engineering review, well, I think they'll have a pretty good idea of some of the hours involved in that, because they'll have their own counsel that, you know, they've already paid to, draft those. But I agree, I
And
think,
since most of our subdivisions are open space anyway, they're gonna have HOAs. So we already know that those are gonna be there. But I believe this line also includes that for the HOA reviews
does,
at
yeah.
least. Maybe not legal, but
No.
well, legal for HOAs, but not additional questions.
so for planning purposes, for budget purposes tonight, no change.
Yeah.
For us, for homework to move forward with, again, to do potential, either revise our fee schedule or just make sure we include it in our notices of decision, you know, that would be a part of it, but I'll take that away and work with, council and town administrator on that piece to see if that is feasible.
Okay.
So for tonight, just our budget, again, items that we've discussed, changing or adding, slightly bumping up dues conferences to $150, publications, adding a line, adding $100 there just to make sure that covers us for our books. Planning board equipment, kind of a one-time cost for every number of years of $750 for a land use clerk, laptop. And then
yeah, see, I
the
think that,
possibility of the SRPC membership at
I don't think
68.
that's gonna happen, because, you know, I remember that on there, we had a budget request from you guys, from this board already, and it's to split here, and then we have it at zeroed out, for the computers. I think we actually might be using, ARPA funds or something like this, because we're gonna buy everybody, so we might be taking that money from somewhere else.
Okay.
So it's not gonna be actually a line item for
So
that
we can,
$750.
if we put it in there now and submit to the board.
Because we have to spend everything of our ARPA, we have to have it spent.
But the budget committee can remove it.
Yeah.
If that does move forward, and that's, you know.
Right,
That's
we're gonna have all this discussed before the end of the year. We're gonna have this all
So,
taken care of.
for now, we can put it in just to make sure
Sure,
it's there in case it's a backup.
just in case you wanna look at, that's where we're going from our last year, that's from 12 to.
How long have they had the current computer?
Oh, I don't know the exact,
You had said like 10 years.
it's been a long time.
Yeah. I'd love to see this atomic computer. How did that thing run 10 years?
Well, I mean, you see, you're using it.
I know it. I don't know how they do it. These things, the software is no good in 5 years.
Still works.
Yes, it powers on. We should be getting her a new one.
It still does its
So-
stuff.
Yeah.
So I do want to just move forward with this, so we can, because we have some other
Yep.
things we gotta go on tonight. So, I lied, it wouldn't go under miscellaneous, it'd go under our, planning board dues / conferences, that's where we would add that number, so. If you add the SRPC membership to that number, to the 110 that's there now, or the 100 that's there now, it's, it'd come up at 6966. Would be the outline item.
Oh, that one, the planning board dues and conferences?
Yep.
Okay.
So our total budget. Let me just run through these and make sure I have them all right. The planner we have is 28,000, or 25,000, I'm sorry, just to cover that contract. Based on what, I think what we're contractually obligated for, so it's changing from 22 to 25. Postage the same. And then, so basically the, master plan, town, I think there's some dollar amount, just like single dollars added for that one.
Excuse me. Bless you.
But if you add in, let's get do it. Get my number right. Official. So if we, $48,361 would be our budget, including the $750 potentially for a land use clerk, laptop. So anybody like to either make a motion for that amount or make a change, or
What was the amount again?
$48,361. The one being a placeholder for the master plan.
I make a motion, we go forward with the budget of $48,361 for 2025,
I'll second that motion.
including the laptop.
So we have a motion by Mr. Severns, a second by Mr. Stevens, to set the planning board budget, or the request for the budget at $48,361. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any
I'm gonna abstain.
abstentions? So that was 5 yays, 0 no's, 1 abstention, right? 'Cause I wasn't looking up.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So that motion carries.
The only reason why I'm staying is because we're gonna have this whole conversation when we go sit there, so it's not,
Yep,
if I have to say no, I hate to say yes right now, but I gotta take something away later.
perfect. All right, back to the agenda. So the next item, I would suggest that we potentially go into non-public to review town council's response. Again, that's just because we have Mylars that have been submitted, it's a conditional approval, one of the conditions being town council review. So we did receive some input. So I would suggest that we go into non-public.
Do you wanna, just out of
And this, yeah,
procedure-wise, I mean, we can close the meeting like we do at the select board and do non-public at the end, unless you're gonna make a decision on this when we come out of non-public.
no, we can do it at the end. I just want to make sure.
Well,
we
I'm
got
just
to it.
saying though, because then we can just shut the we can shut the. thing
Oh,
off.
yeah.
Yeah,
Then
that
we can have our
works. That
non-public.
makes, there's nobody
Because
here.
there's somebody in
Now?
conference room
All right,
too,
we'll-
there's,
We'll hold off. We'll do it at the end.
Okay.
And so we'll make sure that, the goal would be to get out of here, say 9:30 at the latest tonight, so we'll make sure we reserve some time at the end.
I was hoping 8:30.
We'll jump into, I think, because I think it's some good news. It's always nice to get some good news. HOP grant, Mr. Haney, do you have some news for us on that?
Yeah, so congratulations to the town. We've been awarded, or you've been awarded, a HOP grant. Actually, it is we, because we are working together on this.
can you give a brief explanation of the
Yes.
HOP grant for the people at home that are listening?
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, so HOP stands for Housing Opportunities Planning Grant, so HOP. And it was created, I believe, 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, by the legislature. They put aside a large chunk of money that is supposed to focus on housing and getting more housing built in the state to meet the housing demands, to bring costs down, to help with, the nationwide housing crisis that we're feeling. And to some extent, people are saying it's global. There's a lot of, first world countries that are experiencing the same thing. So we're not alone, but, everybody's got a part to play, and we're all experiencing it. So the legislature put money aside. Some of it is for builders and developers to create additional housing. Some of it is for the planning side of things, the regulatory side of things, which is essentially what the HOP grant is for. It's a planning grant that would allow a municipality to look over its regulations, subdivision, zoning ordinance being the 2 major ones, and determine if there's opportunities to provide increased housing, expedite the permitting and building of housing, things of that nature. So, with this grant, what the proposal was to do is primarily look at and update the towns. I believe that your last housing master plan was 2009 or 11. 11, so 13 years old. To update, at the very least, the housing master plan chapter. There could be some wiggle room at looking at like the vision chapter, but for now, it's primarily focused on the housing chapter. And there is an emphasis on public outreach. I've personally been a part of 3 different housing opportunity planning grants, and I was the lead on one of them. And so I have experience on this, and I know that what the stress point is by the state on doing public outreach. They want to hear from the neighbors, they want to hear from the business owners, the residents, elected officials, appointed, officials, board and committee members, anybody that's got an interest in Nottingham. So that's what the HOP grant is about. The goal is to provide, the deliverable will be an updated housing master plan chapter. And, with giving some direction towards perhaps regulatory change. That is all to be determined by the community, My job here is to kind of lead the discussions and talk about best practices, things that other communities have done, and do any research that the community feels is necessary to get them to make a good decision.
Is there a timeline on the expenditure of these funds?
I know
Yes, the short answer is yes. It's either a year or 18 months. I gotta go back and check.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not gonna happen overnight.
A year goes by real quick.
It does, yeah. No,
No, there's a bunch of deliverable deadlines too, and at like January, there's one immediately in January of like, I think initial,
18 months.
whatever.
Is it 18 months?
According to the reporting period and schedule,
Yeah.
it's put out 18 months.
Yeah.
Well, I believe we're gonna have the meeting to accept those funds on Monday.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah,
So
so
that's why I'm saying that's gonna be there, so
Yeah.
does the clock start?
if the board would, I can send a letter of support from the planning board to the select board. Obviously, we kind of applied for it, but if it helps
October
the
1st.
Select board, I can
2026.
submit that letter on our behalf.
According to the grant.
But I think that's great. Again, the community outreach and input for me is the biggest piece of that, because that's where I think land use boards struggle the most, is getting people to provide input when it's not a case that's abutting them. So, thoughts on multifamily, thoughts on ADUs, attached, detached, tensor, all those things. And getting the community together, and that includes every, different types of stakeholders, but is huge. And I think in the opportunity to potentially have that multiple times is good,
Yeah.
or multiple ways.
Yes, that's what it is. It's both of those. It's multiple times in multiple ways. We try to do a lot of different touch points because you don't know how people want to engage, right? Some people will do it through a survey. Some people will do it through a public engagement process where you go to a meeting. Others will just come and find you and give you their thoughts, right? In the past, we've done interviews with builders and developers, people that have used the zoning ordinance and used the site plan or subdivision regulations, and they give you good feedback on what they see from their end. We reach out to nonprofits and other community leaders that maybe look at it from a different angle, like housing advocates. Surveys are always going to happen because that's one of the easiest ways for people to engage because they don't have to leave their house. We did a 3-hour public outreach session with multiple stations, like on a Saturday, and we had 50 people show up. And that was in a small community, so it was great. It was great to see that. I think everybody's getting the message that housing is important and that, we need to look at it, so they're coming out, and they're engaging with us. So we're always looking for new ideas on how to engage with them, but we kind of have some staples in our our tool belt, so to speak.
Yeah, appreciate it.
As I understand, in another adjacent town, when they updated their thing, they had their Boy Scouts deliver to every household a survey and then collect that survey and then put that together, so they got a fairly large response percentage. So But, you know, again, how you, what you ask on that survey is gonna be very important as to how questions are answered, and, you know, that has to be developed and worked on too.
Yeah,
And the nice thing is SRPC has done this for other communities, is my understanding, so they're gonna be spearheading this for us. There'll be more information coming from SRPC in January to probably us and the select board as to how that process is probably gonna look, again, because there's gonna be deadlines and deliverables and, a bunch of different things throughout the year, so, more to come, but that's, some good news, and again, helps.
During the development of Marston also, we use New Hampshire Listens.
Yeah,
They come in and train
a charrette.
people to
yeah.
ask the appropriate questions and get comments from people, so.
Yep.
Another way, it worked pretty good.
yeah,
We
you
had
gotta
about
meet
100
people,
people,
you
but-
gotta meet people where they are,
Yeah.
right? And that's, what we try to do. But you gotta do it, you also have a budget constraint too, right? Not everything can go towards outreach, you gotta eventually write the report, do stuff like that.
Perfect, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Who determines on how we can spend the money? Is that gonna be the BOS?
Well,
Because I could say that like whoever decides, we're gonna put out of this money, since you said the master plan, can we take $5,000 of this money and put that towards the master plan, towards the housing part? Then can we take the $8,000, let's say, whatever, and put that towards rewriting ordinances that say, hey, on how to make condos better establishment, you know, having
Yeah.
condos better in town, or doing something, or who sets where the money goes and how?
I can forward a whole package of information about the HOP grant, because it was kind of like the
I just wonder how we
originator of this.
Or is the board here gonna tell the BOS, this is how we think we should spend it?
We've hired, or agreed to have SRPC, be our consultant for this, development of the, housing part of the master plan, with this HOP grant. So there's rules and, recording and, updating, procedures and processes and checkpoints and, what money can be used for. And, so it's, they may be, Blair, on the other ones you've done, have you seen that the grant, the HOP grant money come into SRPC or to the town and then to?
it's a reimbursement, so what we do is we bill the town, and the town, I don't know, maybe they cut us a check and then seek reimbursement, or then they go to the agency and request the funds to then turn around and pay us. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's a reimbursement process. And we provide invoices to the town. So, I will make sure that Ellen has the, grant, application so that you can see this, but like, they have a budget template that we filled out. You know, I don't wanna read every single line item, but it's, you know, $1,500 for data analysis, $1,500 for GIS and custom mapping. We do something that's called scenario planning, where we say, okay, what if we reduce the frontage from 200 to 150? What does that do, right? So we try to create some scenarios. $4,000 is dedicated to that, because we'll get a couple of scenarios.
Or if you said an apartment building in town that you, let's say, I don't know if they're technically supposed to be called apartments anymore, but whatever. But, you know, you need, for each one, you need 2 acres.
Yeah,
Okay, but what if that changed on ours, that said maybe you only need an acre of land per? You know, would that improve the fact of getting more of those, or we do that for condos, do we bring that down? So if somebody wants to put a condo in, you know, we can bring that, for that specific structure.
yeah.
You know,
Yes, we can.
move things like this along to help promote different things, you know?
Yeah, you can do different scenarios by changing different metrics and seeing what the outputs are. So if that's something the town wanted to explore, then we could do that. They all have their limitations. I gotta put my little asterisks in there.
of course.
And they have their limitations, but yes, that is essentially what we can do. You know, 8,000 for draft preparation, 6,000 for the public forums, a planning board workshop, planning board meetings, a couple $1,000s each for those. So
That money's gonna go quick.
it is, yeah. For a single,
Yeah,
for the master plan chapter update, yes. It's just how it is.
Yeah, no worries.
Because when you do the public forums, when you do the public outreach that they're requiring you to do, they want you to do multiple touch points. That's one of the ways in which this happens.
Well, that's gonna go fast when you start working on the next grant.
Yeah, right. You know, some of the communities, I don't know what's going to happen, but some of the communities are now getting implementation grants because they got, in the first, they got this, the master plan chapter update grant, and now they're getting implementation grants. You guys are coming in on round 2 for your update. If they do a round 3, perhaps we can get some money for implementation.
Doug, the next round on the Invest New Hampshire money is that if you actually implement changes in your town and they give you what it's called a housing champion rating, and the state will actually pay for the town for increases in certain infrastructure and things like that. So there is more money. If there's $100 million put out there for, you know, creating housing in this housing crisis. So that money does go out to, you know, there's more money out there. Not necessarily for updating the housing, the master plan itself, but for, you know, I think it was $10,000 per unit for additional units that are put into the town in some instances.
So we could
Which-
do a police station, and then we get a substation for the fire. I'm joking.
Well, right.
I'm joking a little bit, not really. I mean, those are two big needs of the town, and that's things that are gonna come up.
CIP, so
over
it's not
demand,
really-
so,
It's on CIP, so it's not really.
yeah, so. All right, thank you for that. I do wanna keep moving forward. So we got the, zoning amendment potential updates to go over. I sent out these to the town council for anything that we had drafted already. So the comments that came back, so they're in your packet tonight under case. We'll tackle steep slope second. The one comment that came back from the council was basically any kind of housekeeping cleanup. It was recommended that we separate that out from actual, like, you know, substantive changes. So there was only, as you could see in the packet, the red edits were I did this to try to show, you know, what we were changing, what we might be adding for verbiage. That's how I tracked it. So the only comment so I did it is zoning change 1, which was amend Article 2, C2E, which was removing the 200 foot by 200 foot square, pulling the septic system part out and moving that separately to call it out. I guess what she would recommend is that the definition of lot envelope, instead of having that included in this, that we just do that as a separate, you know, definition cleanup.
That would be a separate warrant article, is that correct?
Yep. And then zoning change 2, which is amend Article 2, E2, which is the commercial industrial zone. Bit of cleanup, similar, removing that 200 by 200. Getting rid of the backlot verbiage, because that doesn't apply to that zone or things anyhow. The one comment that she did provide back on these was, we were trying to remove residences, and I thought the word structures might make sense. But she points out that in our definition, structures also includes, storage tanks of water or gas and carports.
The septic.
I think septic is separate. So did we mean that, or do we want to use a different word?
I'm sorry it took me that long to figure out where the papers were.
It's okay.
Where are you at?
Oh, I'm sorry, so zoning change number 1, there were no comments, so we can vote on that if we're gonna move forward. Zoning change
Oh, I see, okay.
2 would be, Article 2, E2, which is the commercial industrial zone. It was to clean up in that section, removing the verbiage of backlots, changing residences to structures. That's the one sticky point right now. So structure right now is defined as that which is built or constructed with a fixed location on the ground or attached to something having a fixed location on the ground, whether installed on or below the surface of land. A structure includes, but is not limited to, a building, barn, swimming pool, manufactured home, mobile home, septic system, so you're right, sorry, I thought we pulled that out of a different spot. Well, gas or liquid storage tank, deck, porch, balcony, breezeway, carport. Does not include a boundary wall, fence, driveway, in kind. So we probably do not want to use the term structure instead of residence, but I don't know what term we could use. There was no alternative term. provide.
We'd have to
Well-
define it too, right? Any specific term that we used here? just like
Potentially,
structure?
unless it's a commonly used, understood term.
Should we start with steep slopes and, one item at a time instead of throwing 50 items at us and then we don't even know what we're talking about anymore?
Well, I thought we'd go through the ones that were kind of, it sounded like we had, gone through and had talked about moving forward with, and then steep slopes was still, something on the fence for people, so. I just wanted to get through these and then go to tackle that
Your
one.
book under the second case.
Yeah. Steep slope.
Hang on.
So,
Flip that staple thing over. No.
I have two documents from Susan. One starts
okay.
zoning change number
The
one,
staple thing.
and the other one is steep slopes. Those are the two that we're dealing with right now.
There you go. All right, that's what he's talking
So
about.
I was on the one that,
Okay, well, that's.
Zoning change number
lot
one.
envelope. That's a different item.
The word
It is a different-
soil,
But we had already addressed.
something of upland soils, it's
These
Yeah,
might
it's got
go
a D
through with-
instead of an S.
just a spelling.
Soiled instead of soils.
oh, that was probably me.
I have concerns.
over there.
I'd like to.
I'm sure.
I'm sure that was just
out, but
Well, you may do that at
me
any point
cutting
in
and
time.
pasting, but
Let me know when you need my help.
Okay, sir, well, I will need your help in a minute.
No, I wish I had my thesaurus here.
so
Because
Blair,
what-
what I'm stuck on right now is the way we define structure, it doesn't seem like that's the right word to replace resident, so,
What section are we talking about, the amendment thereof?
sure. So it's Article 2E, which is
C2.
commercial industrial zone, 2. And then letter B,
Second page.
1, 2, and 3.
zoning change number 2 is what we're looking at.
Yeah, zoning change number 2 in the document. Let me just go back and see if there's anything actually in there.
Oh, we're on section, or, number two.
So are we working on steep slopes or lot envelope? Because I looked at the agenda and it said the first item on the agenda was
At
steep
the
slopes.
beginning of the night, when you weren't here, we reordered the agenda, so we're not talking about steep slopes, we're talking about that after we go through the law envelope pieces of it, that changes to Article 2, C2E, and Article 2, E2B. So again, those items, the board had spent quite a bit of time on at the last meeting, and it sounded like there was effort to move forward with those steep slopes.
So you look first right now to say on Article 2, C2, E, and, you know, if we just agree with the new change where we're gonna take out the 200 by 200 square foot building and take out and septic system and add in there, the septic system shall also ordinate within the fits for building envelope and may extend outside for as long as the setbacks to adhere to.
Yeah, but
That's the only we're making a decision on right now.
So
We're gonna go forward.
the only question, though, that came back from council is a good point, is under the zoning change number 2, we changed residences because residences are, residential's removed, so residence didn't seem like the right term to have that section anymore, to change it to structures, but the way we define structures, I agree, doesn't make sense, because you would say that it's a, shared driveway couldn't go to this warehouse and their septic, their septic system and their water cistern that's gonna provide their fire and stuff, because we define structures that way.
We gotta find a new word.
Right.
Why,
Buildings.
why don't we stick with residents? Because I agree, I think we're gonna get into, it's just like the onion, it's gonna keep opening.
Right. This will be a long one.
Well, residence
So
doesn't cover
the-
commercial,
This is in the commercial district, is this correct?
Correct, yeah,
So a residence is not permitted currently in the commercial district.
correct.
So we are attempting to say that this section doesn't apply because residences don't apply?
Not saying that it doesn't apply, it's saying it applies, but what happened was the verbiage was copied from one section to the second section when this was done, so the same verbiage was used in the agricultural zone as was used in the commercial industrial zone for this piece. But again, it doesn't seem to make sense to leave the word residences
Yep.
in there, since that use was specifically removed by town vote, so it's trying to figure out,
What about buildings?
Well, a structure can be a principal structure such as you know, here's my house, principal structure, and then I have a secondary structure, which is my garage, barn, ADU, whatever it is. There may be two principal structures on a commercial piece. It might be, here's my house, and then I have my car repair garage. I'm calling out right up to Route 4 right now in my brain, going, here is two principal structures and two uses that are going on. So, what is the goal of this lot envelope in that section? Or is it that we should not have a lot envelope in the commercial district and should simply say, we're removing lot envelope from commercial district because it doesn't apply?
No, we're not removing lot envelope at all. That was never proposed, so it's cleaning up the language of that section. But right now, what we're talking about is just under number B12, the term, if you get rid of structures, do you say, maybe it's two lots instead? Because if it's commercial zone, it's two lots, you may have multiple businesses on a lot that could be considered a shared driveway. You get that quite often times where it's not a roadway that goes into those commercial parks, it's a, you know, it's a roadway, so.
So, you know, you were suggesting, Doug was suggesting building. We have building envelope, we have building height, and we have building inspector. So I don't know if using the word building
Yeah, no.
as a physical thing would match what those are saying. We're almost using, we're almost using building as a verb,
Define it.
you know, so I don't think we could switch to that. Because that is, a lot of times you'll see that structure is like habitable space, whereas, or maybe building is house space and structure could be like a carport, right? It's a structure, but it doesn't, or a shed. It's not, you can't physically occupy it, but it's built.
Right.
You'll see that sometimes, but
You
I
can
don't,
extrapolate that out, now it's a fancy deck.
Yeah.
Out back is a structure,
exactly,
you know, and-
so
yeah.
it
A
gets,
warehouse would
Well,
be considered
did
habitable.
this shared driveway
Sorry?
concept?
Warehouse would be a habitable space.
yes, exactly, yeah. Something that has insulation and heating is usually, you know, climate control is usually what's considered a habitable space.
So more than two habitable structures?
Well, what if it's,
Habitable,
what if it's an office or a car repair garage?
those are
Well,
habitable,
if they have a toilet and a sink and a shower, then
yeah.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
I think this, if you read this section, it talks about a common driveway. Okay, a common driveway. We have common driveways on residential purpose
We're looking for a
properties.
word to describe a
just looking for-
thing.
right.
Just, we're looking.
Yeah, we're not trying to take
looking for a
away
word.
common driveways, we're just
You're
trying
not
to,
following.
But I don't
Why don't
understand
we
why
take
we
out
can't put
common
a,
driveway? Just delete the whole
That doesn't
sentence.
solve the problem.
What if a commercial property was a commercial multi-unit, such as the guy that just came into our meeting a few weeks ago? He had 3 different businesses going on his site with 3 different buildings. Now he can't have that because he can only have 2 structures or buildings on one driveway? It doesn't make any sense.
the difference is,
Doesn't apply.
well, the difference is a driveway, the requirements for a driveway, again, once you get into certain, you know, you have an industrial park or commercial park with 10 different businesses in there, and they say, well, we only need a driveway, that's this regulation, it's, you know, 12 feet wide and whatever, I'm just throwing numbers out there. But you get to a point where it's not appropriate and it's supposed to be a roadway, but I think this was also in response to, some of this language was also added at one point in response to 911. So we had areas in town where you had 3 residences on what was technically a common driveway. 911 couldn't, it said, no, it has to be a road, they couldn't set it up, it has to be, you know, 2 or more, 2 is fine, that's a shared, that's a driveway. 3 or more was a roadway, was my understanding of that, and so a couple of new roads got made in town.
So those pertain to residential properties on which are allowed in residential zones and not in commercial zones. So if they're not allowed in a commercial zone, why should there be a provision about a common driveway limiting the number of residents or structures or whatever if they're not allowed? It doesn't make any sense. It creates its own conflict right out of the box. And if it's a commercial multi-use, like, the business park project there had 1 driveway and had like 5 on the second part of the thing after the big building. They had like 5 different sets of buildings on that 1 driveway. How does this,
Well, but that's industrial. Isn't that managed under different regulations?
Yeah, so I mean,
it
potentially,
was called a road.
Right, so that would be considered.
I guess
a
that's all you
road,
have to
so-
do.
Could you have building one, which was 46, 47, and he was gonna call it, whatchamacallit road, it wasn't a driveway.
Right.
He was making a road, and each building was its own number.
Yep.
Number building,
So that's the
a
solution
road.
to those bigger ones. But then there are the ones, there's a lot of shared driveways out here, right? So is it going to a building? Is it going to a residence? Building is a little bit overused, maybe property?
Or can we remove it and say each single parcel of land is required to indicate a driveway curb cut within the required minimum frontage, strike the next sentence, strike 1 and 2, and leave number 3, driveways and access including an apron shall be.
I think you need to keep the words, the required driveway may be, and then a colon, and then either one of these 4 or 3 items.
There you go.
But,
Go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just,
Oh, that's
Somehow-
that's how my English teacher would have done it. Perfect.
somehow there's so much crap in here that it becomes meaningless, and then structures means nothing.
You do have a definition called commercial use, which is facilities for sale, lease, trade, or delivery of products, goods, or services, and their accessory uses. Home businesses are excluded from this category. So in one definition, you could have no more than 2 residences, the other one, you could have no more than 2 commercial uses.
There you go.
All right,
It's
I,
gonna change in 5 years anyway, so.
do we have our zoning, like, can we look at what section of the zoning ordinance, I mean, I'm looking at this paragraph out of context to these, is this relevant to the actual commercial section of our zoning ordinance?
It is, yep.
Right. And residences are not allowed in commercial districts, so shared driveways don't need to be discussed.
But you could have a scenario
Shared
where
driveway.
someone has a shared driveway for 2 commercial uses.
And 2 commercial lots.
Yes, exactly.
Well.
So that's what I'm saying, if
But
you
if
take-
it's 2
take out
lots,
red-
you already have that covered.
What's that?
If it's 2 lots, we already have that covered. This is when there's 2 structures on the same lot, as I read it. No more than 2
So-
structures
So
on
in
a,
all
on
the
a piece
commercial
of land.
places of
I
the
think
world, they
common
have a
is
big
correct.
driveway, and then there's several break-offs to several different
Yeah, I mean,
buildings.
it's really
on
only a-
those lots, and it's very confusing to drive around in parking lots these days, because people have over-engineered and designed it.
Yeah, in all honesty, it should actually be, what Skip's saying is, make it change it to lots or parcels or something, because that's all we're concerned about.
Yeah, you know, I look at it and say, I think what this is trying to do is to require a driveway in each parcel of land. 1. Secondly, that driveway can be shared as long as it's kept on the common boundary, is will be put in the owner's deed of record, each owner's deed of record, which I don't understand because we're only talking 1 parcel. And then the other one is driveways and accesses, including any apron or curbing, that shall be placed a minimum of 10 feet from any property line.
It's the line just above what you were reading. Number 2, each single parcel of land is required to contain a driveway, blah, blah. The required driveway may be either single or common, serving no more than 2.
I think lots is what we're trying to tackle.
I think it is, yeah.
This,
Because what goes on in an individual lot is sort of like addressed in a different part of them.
Right, so
ordinance.
this is under commercial, under lot sizes. No lot shall be less than 2 acres, period. That's the zoning rule. The next part says, they shall have 200 feet of frontage. Done. How many driveways? I mean, if they're in the commercial district, believe it or not, they're gonna be going up to DOT to ask about driveways and permission to drive their car from their lot onto. Why are we even micromanaging what DOT has 100%?
Because that's not the case, like there was a proposal that came, there was a version of a proposal that came before us for the Route 4 Business Park, where he had an internal roadway that would have been its own roadway so that he could create individual lots off of it. So if that's the case, then it's not a DOT thing, that would then become a planning board thing. And then there's also the scenarios you just don't think of.
Why don't we just say that no,
I think if we just say lots, I think we
no
would.
parcel shall have more than 2 driveways, if that's the case, or something like that? subject to DOT approval. And this common driveway for two residences, buildings or whatever, doesn't even apply, and because they're not allowed, that's already been removed from this ordinance without this section respectively being removed. And when it was voted to take residents out of the commercial district, this section should have been chunked out, and it's not, and now it's creating this confusion. So take out section 2, gone.
So shared,
Section 3 should be gone too.
so shared driveway, also common driveway as a definition, says a travel way which accommodates vehicular and pedestrian circulation between a street and multiple adjoining lots. So I think using the word lots is the better way to go, because that seems to be what's consistent with the definition. And it applies actually to both regulations, residential and commercial. And I think that's really what you're concerned about. It's not so much structures, it's
Correct, yeah. It was
just, you don't want it to go to 3 lots and 4 lots and, you know, infinite.
because then it would be.
I concur with Watts on that. Thank you, Blair, you are correct. Because there could be 7 structures and a commercial business park on a lot, but how many access points do they have to that lot is the key question, so.
That's what you're trying to control with,
So we changed it to lots.
yeah.
So then number 3, each lot must contain, again, we cleaned out the 200 by 200 square. I think structure does fit here, because that means it's gonna meet the setbacks of the commercial industrial zone. And then it cleaned up and pulled the septic part out to match the verbiage of
All right, but
the prior section.
somehow fit for building area got put back in the long red part. And I'm not real sure what happened there, which,
Isn't,
used to be no,
isn't a lot envelope for a single-family home?
No, because we define,
We defined a lot as 30,000 square feet of continuous area. We took away 200 by 200 square feet in the
Fit for
definition of each lot must contain.
yeah.
So I think in this exercise,
The commercial zone.
instead of reinventing the jet engine, let's just use the word lots for now.
If we keep the lot envelope definition in there, we're gonna have a problem.
Why, we haven't had it, we've had that
Because
definition.
the new wording says, part of the septic system shall originate in the fit for building area. But may extend outside of it as long as setbacks are adhered to. The septic includes a pipe from the building, a tank, a pump tank, a distribution box, another line to the field, and a leach field. Which exact part are we thinking that we wanna have in that envelope, and which parts can be out of that envelope? Why are we regulating septics when the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services does? Why do we have to put something about septics in there?
We could,
Why?
well, we could say no, and then they'll just have to adhere to the 100-foot setback of the commercial zone anyhow, so.
Right. The 100-foot commercial setback, if you look at a minimum commercial lot of 200 feet, and you take 100 feet from the left and 100 feet from the right, it leaves 0.
what does that tell you?
So again, that's, but
It
that's,
bigger
tells
than
us
200
that
feet
people that we don't want commercial uses in our town, and that's why over the last 22 years, in multiple listing service, there's been 7 commercial sales.
no, we're not gonna tackle all that tonight, Mr. Evans. So you're taking us down a rabbit hole again, and we're not there to discuss that tonight. So nowhere in here we're talking about the commercial setback. The 22 years and things like that, the very largest chunk that is in the commercial zone has been tied up in the longest bankruptcy case in US history. So that's why we don't have as much as commercial things, but we also have to be 100% understanding that all that commercial space abuts residential properties. So to balance the two needs of existing residential structures and potential future commercial uses, we added a buffer. 100 feet isn't that much. If they're going on a minimum lot size, sure, that sounds like a lot. But if they're talking about a major commercial use, they're not gonna be looking at a 2 acre lot. They're gonna be looking at a bigger parcel, and the parcels that are over there that are available still are mostly larger parcels. So, again, what we're here to discuss tonight is trying to clean up this language, because we're tackling these sections anyhow. It makes a lot of sense to, if we see an error that was there, clean it up. Some of those other items are relevant, but those are for a discussion at another time, because, again, if we're gonna move these forward, we have to move them forward tonight to get the public hearing notice on time and for the first January meeting.
So Ed, was that last paragraph or that section added? Because I don't have it anywhere on my notes.
This is, so during that meeting, I was taking notes, I read them back,
I think it ended at upland soils.
but, so we kind of matched the two, but we can remove that from this section. That's
I
fine.
don't think it's important because all the existing setbacks and that kind of stuff are already in there.
Yep.
So I think just deleting after upland soils is appropriate, unless there's something there that, I don't see it. I think everything else is, shall be placed to meet all existing setback ordinances, so I think you got it.
Yeah.
So delete, the septic system shall also originate within the fit for building area, but may extend outside of it as long as setbacks are adhered to.
Agreed.
That's confusing.
Well, it's not there
Which
now.
part of the septic?
No, he's saying remove it.
Remove it.
Mr. Severance is saying, remove that whole sentence, so end at upland soils. So where it's, for number 3, it'll just read simply, each lot must contain a 30,000 square foot contiguous area lot envelope in which a structure shall be placed to meet all existing setbacks ordinances consisting of upland soils. And here, structure does make sense because the way that zone is set up within the rest of the article, that would cover it. So I think that does clarify.
So that's on the commercial district, or is that on all districts?
No,
There's
just
a lot
commercial.
envelope for all districts.
Just commercial.
Okay.
Because again, commercial is regulated differently, and there's other pieces that don't apply to the residential zone.
But that also extends in zoning change 1. I would suggest we remove it from there also.
But zoning change 1, it does make sense to keep it in because we talk about septic systems in that section, and that's why we left it in there, and we just moved it to a separate line.
Right, but why highlight the fact that there's something there? I mean, we already say shall be placed to meet all existing setback ordinances. I don't know
Because
what
we're
it
trying to
is.
show that the septic system should start within, should be partially within, and it shouldn't be this nebulous thing way outside that's not even attached to the 30K area.
Okay, the idea of this
Trying to give
sentence
them
was,
some,
the idea of this sentence
Yeah.
was to make sure that the septic system was somehow, included within some sort of setback requirements, which I think we already have as part of the lot envelope.
There's a setback requirement by the state Department of
No, I don't
Environmental
care about the
Services.
state right now.
And.
I don't care about the
And we have it
state.
in our regulations, 20 feet.
But that's what we're talking about, in the regulations or any other ordinance that exists, where does this need to go? I
Well,
don't
it
think,
doesn't need to be in the lot envelope is the bottom line. Because it's
Okay.
not gonna be in the.
So, Chris, what that
It's not
means-
gonna be in the lot envelope.
what that means right now is we have to go through and change the definitions too, okay? So, that's a piece of the puzzle that still exists, but I think at this point in time, making this change here doesn't, to me, make a lot of sense at the present time for zoning change 1. I think we already have it covered.
Ed, can you, in a simple paragraph or a couple sentences, define the purpose of what this lot envelope, what are we trying to achieve with this? What's the goal?
so for zoning change number 1,
No, but just in words, say what we want this to do, please.
and I'm explaining the one I'm speaking about, which I think we're discussing tonight, is right now, at this moment, is zoning change number 1. So the goal of this was to clarify and fix some of the confusion that was identified by, through some plans, so during a prior zoning change, the septic system setback was reduced.
Correct.
It was removed, it had been 50 feet, just like houses, it had been reduced to 20. So it should no longer be, and septic system shall be placed, because it seemed like applicants were getting confused as to, well, do I need to show 50, do I need to show 20? So by pulling that out, removing the 200 by 200 square, because that's no longer relevant, but by pulling out the septic system piece, and then specifying that it shall originate within the fit for building area, but it may extend outside, that's just to show that, yes, it's got some leniency as to the setback, but it still should be somehow connected, that 4K area should still be connected to the 30K area.
The outcome of doing that is by making the septic stay 50 feet from the lot line.
We're not,
It's increasing the setback for septics and limiting people's rights on their property.
we're not. In.
Which part of the
all-
septic
all-
starts
all-
there?
All zoning limits rights if you wanna go that route, so we can either abolish the whole thing, or we can keep moving forward and try to add clarity to what the town has already applied, so.
Why don't you just ask for a vote right now for the people that have the discussions that already thinks, because I'm pretty set with what it says right there and changing it. If you want to vote for that to go forward, if we have one person that objects, that's fine, we're aboard. Because we can sit here and talk about this all night, man, but we're not going
We already
anywhere.
did, yeah, we hashed this out.
We've been this down this
The
road
last
before.
meeting.
We did this the last time.
And
we
what
came
was
up with this
great was
verbiage.
Teresa said, let's just say that lots need a 30,000 square foot building area because we want to have enough land to sustain a
No,
house,
this,
a
don't,
building and
Mrs.
a
Bascom's
septic.
not here tonight, don't put words in her mouth. This verbiage was specifically reviewed by Mrs. Bascom before it went to legal counsel as the vice chair, so that's not what the case. So this was the verbiage that was agreed upon at the last meeting, this is why I sent it to the council this way. So, what Mr. Moran, I believe, was making a motion that we move forward with zoning change number 1 as written.
I'll make a motion that we move for zoning, change, amendment Article 2, C2, Section E, as written.
I'll second that motion.
The motion by Mr. Moran, second by Mr. Stevens regarding amending Article 2, C2E as written. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I
Any abstentions?
opposed.
Abstention?
Yep.
Okay, so it's 4-0-1. So basically, this means, again, this doesn't mean it's final. This means that we're moving it forward to a public hearing for January, and at the end of the night, we'll make that vote for the public hearing dates. So the vote was 4-1-1 for the minutes.
Do you want us to vote for the change of the lot envelope where we're
Yeah, so-
disregarding the line of the 200 by 200 square?
Yes.
Just put it where it says for a minimum of 30,000?
In the warrant article numbers will get made later on, so,
We're just here to approve
Yes.
tonight what the changes we think should go before we go to the public hearing for the subjects for.
exactly, so the amend the definition.
I'll make a motion that under lot envelope, amended definitions, that lot envelope, we take out the section where it says 200 by 200 square foot, or A. That gets disregarded, and then we just stick with the fact of saying a minimum of 30,000 continuous square feet. As written on here.
Motion by Mr. Moore, is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Second by Mr. Stevens, any further discussion?
Was
Yes,
that all
I
the
have
red stuff?
discussion.
Was that all the red stuff, John?
Yeah, we're just taking out that, right here. We're just taking
Oh,
out the,
sorry, I was looking ahead, all right. all
we're
right.
just going straight through the packet.
Yeah,
In that section, it says, and building setbacks. Aren't building setbacks already, I think building setbacks should be removed from that. Building setbacks are already discussed in other sections, and this is creating a redundant
Well,
overlapping.
I have a motion and I have a second on the floor right now, so
And I'm-
are you have to be, are
I'm
you,
discussing, we're having open discussion about that, and I'm
About-
saying that
about
perhaps
what
we should
I-
consider
about
building
my
setbacks
Discussion,
to
the
be-
discussion has to be about the motion itself. not about the-
exactly, that's what he's asking you. It's not about the whole thing, it's about my motion.
So, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstentions? That's opposed? Mr. Evans?
Opposed.
And Mr. Severns, were you for?
I was for.
And that was simply to remove that 200 by 200 square
That's
foot
it.
line, that's it.
Correct.
That's kind of simple.
And again, we're
But
trying to
then we
clean up.
added the septic system.
No, we
Part
didn't
of it
add
must be-
anything.
didn't add
If it's-
anything. We're
We
gonna
didn't
take
add
that out.
anything to the lot envelope definition. We did not add anything to it. We just removed and made it clear. The next section would be zoning change, what is identified as zoning change number 2, to amend Article 2, E2B, 1, and then 1, 2, and 3. The changes made tonight from the prior minutes, or from the prior meeting were where it said structures, no more than 2 structures, change that to lots, and then to strike all the verbiage under number 3 after the period from upland soils.
So I'm just gonna make a
All of it.
quick statement on that one there. I'm for, on the Article 2, E2, B1, whatever, you know, B lot sizes is what we're talking about right now. We have the comments, we're talking about structures, but we're gonna change that to lots, correct?
Yep.
Okay, the second part is when we're going down, is to make clear, at the last part of the pink, it says the septic system shall originate within the fit for building area, but may extend outside of it as long as the setbacks adhere to.
We were striking that.
We're striking that.
We're striking that whole thing.
Yep.
Everything
there
after
that's in
upland
pink.
soils.
After upland soils.
The number 3
So
will,
after that, we're stopping upland soils, perfect.
Yep.
That's- Then I'm good to go on that too. Everybody else make a motion, then ready to roll.
I'll make a motion to move forward with zoning change, number 2, changing part, E2B1, part 2, to read no more than 2 lots instead of no more than 2 structures. And then to change B13, sorry, E2B13, to strike the section that says a 200-foot by 200-foot square foot for building, or, and to strike, house and septic system, and replace that with structure.
last one's section 1, B1, was to strike that
Oh,
out
I'm sorry,
sentence.
yeah. And also to, in section E2, B1, part 1, to strike the, section that says, except with the extent with regard to frontage of backlots approved in accordance with Article 4, Section T.
I'll second.
The motion by Mr. Stevens, second by Mr. Moran. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries 6-0.
Well done.
Ed, for you, on zoning change number 1, when, from in the 2 section, just before the upland
Yeah.
soils, says soiled.
Yeah, I think that was my typo. But
Oh, yeah, no, I
I'm
just-
sure it says soils and,
Just thought,
Is there a reason why the amendment to definition lot envelope is not listed as zoning change number 2?
it will be, that's what I was saying.
Oh,
It
I
will
didn't
be.
hear that.
So I had kind of listed these this way when I sent it to council, and that was their suggestions that you pull that out, which they didn't change, they didn't add like a note, so. That's what I was saying, at the end, by the end of the night, once we decide, you know, what might move forward, the numbers will get changed. But for tonight's purposes, that's what the law says. So we did have one more,
did you
one
ask
more.
about the lot envelope definition too?
I just asked about numbering of these things.
No, no,
Oh,
just the
okay.
numbering.
But the
Yeah.
not, the definition in the back also needs to change.
Yeah. Right.
What do you mean?
So that, for lot envelope.
Well, for a lot envelope,
Yeah.
where,
So we had that motion for that, so really, we have one, we have 3 potential zoning changes that we just are moving forward with.
right, I'm just saying that when that passes, that lot envelope definition will have to change in the back of the zoning reg.
We have,
Yeah.
right, we have that as
Yeah.
a warrant article, yeah. That's what we're saying, we're pulling that out as a separate warrant article.
Yep, okay.
That piece. So we do have one more that's in this section before we go on to any other parts. What's currently listed is zoning change number 3. To amend the chart specifically for clarity in Article 2, C3A, to reduce septic system setbacks for pre-existing lots and separate septic systems into their own row. So we're accomplishing 2 things. Not only we're adding a row, pulling septic systems out of the property lines accessories, and for the pre-existing non-conforming lots, we're reducing it down to 10 feet based on some of the input from zoning in the cases that they are receiving. So there was no comment from council on that one as to any feedback, so. Anybody like to make a motion on that one?
I'll make a motion to move forward with zoning change number 3, to amend Article 2, Section C3A, to remove from row 3 the words "and septic systems," and to add a 4th row that says "between side and rear property lines and septic systems," with pre-existing non-conforming lots having a 10-foot setback and all other lots having a 20-foot setback.
There's a motion by Mr. Stevens, is there a
I'll
second? Second by Mr. Severns. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, that motion carries 6-0 as well. All right. So that's it on that. Again, so far, for any of these, well, we'll keep going, and then we'll discuss that part of it. So they did also review the potential verbiage if, and this is for the board to continue discussion. We amended this 2 meetings ago, touched upon it at the last meeting, have a little bit more time tonight. I had comment from them on the steep slopes verbiage. And I believe that is the first item in this section, was council's response.
I would like to discuss an idea on that. One, you know, as I previously said, 25% slope is not excessive, but right out of the box, it says in that proposal that slope restrictions shall be maintained at a 3-to-1 slope. And I would like to point out that a 3-to-1 slope is a 30% slope. So we're asking for slope restrictions on 25% slopes while we're insisting that they have 30% slopes. This will add a lot of confusion. 30% slopes, 3-to-1 slopes exist in all through the whole zoning ordinance. There's already several sections in the zoning ordinance that deal with steep slopes. For example, fit for building, unfit for building, etc. I make a motion that we should table this steep slope district for further discussion and not add an extra layer to our plans, which are very confusing already. I want to point out this particular plan here, wherever it went.
Well, if you're making a motion, make the motion. You can't make
Okay,
a motion
check,
and then
check.
continue.
All right.
You know, give-
It places additional, I'm just gonna bring up other points then before my motion. It's already protected. We have other governmental agencies that reduce, that, you know, protect against erosion and set up. There's DES regulations, alteration of terrain regulations. There's already setbacks to wetlands where water is gonna be running into setbacks of wetlands. There's already slopes there. Water does go downhill all by itself. We haven't had a steep slope resident restriction in the town for the last 300 years, and we're still here. It's just gonna add a lot more confusion this time of a housing crisis, impact property rights of owners. So I'm making a motion that we table this for further consideration.
There's a motion by Mr. Evans to table. Is there a second?
I'm gonna second it because I don't wanna talk about it, because I don't agree with it either, but I'm not gonna go with the length of that.
So the motion and a second to table this. Motion by Mr. Evans, second by Mr. Moran. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm gonna abstain.
All right, so
Me
the
too.
motion to table
Why?
is defeated, so we can continue discussion on this. Again, Mr. Evans, you make a lot of comments about 300 years. Again, 300 years ago, nobody would build on this land because it would have been unproductive. There's different things to do,
Caterpillar
but
wasn't around.
we are not the only town or district or agency or anything like that that indicates that 25% and above slopes are very difficult to stabilize. They should typically be avoided. Our current protections are lacking because, yes, while you can't include it in a building envelope, we've allowed roadways to go straight up through them with 60 to 80 foot deep cuts and 200 to 300 foot wide fills to be able to stabilize
Cut and
the
fill,
area.
yeah.
So you're creating huge lot disturbance. And yes, while I understand AOT gets to provide input on that, the town gets to also have a say as to what they want. And there's no way you can vegetate and revegetate and create, from being, you know.
Are you asking for a motion on this?
So the one, I was gonna say, well, the way it's written, there was one item from the council that, for us, two, I'm sorry, for the board to consider. Under applicability A, does the board consider adding additional engineering plans to the application such as erosion, water runoff? I don't think it's needed, because we talked about those items in a different spot, and we can require them at any time. Performance standards, does the board want to include limitations on the grade of where structures and or driveways will be placed? I suggest putting limitations here and then including a provision to permit conditional use. So I think we don't need that because we've already stated, how we're defining these. It's major subdivisions only, it's not individual lots. So I think based on what the board has talked about for intent on this, that section wouldn't be needed to be added for additional, restriction.
I feel like we should move this forward to public comment and see what the voters feel about it. I know there are some strong opinions here on the board, one way or the other, but ultimately we put a fair amount of work into this, and I think it would be a shame not to at least let the voters have their say on whether or not they think our steep slope should also be protected.
Well,
Is that a motion?
Given
They
that,
sh-
I will make a motion
they
to
should be protected,
move
but
forward
perhaps
the-
So
there
there's,
should be a,
Mr. Evans, there's a motion being made by Mr.
motion
Stevens.
to move forward, the Article 3 overlay district, steep slope protection district. Do I need to say more on that? I'm not sure exactly. what- I'm not gonna read this whole thing.
Is there a
out.
second? I will second the motion. All those in I'm sorry, any further discussion regarding the motion itself? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll go with the aye.
Okay, so 4-2. And again, this doesn't mean it's going forward to warrant article, it means it's moving forward for additional public comment. It'll be posted as a public hearing, so, there's still time. And then ultimately, no matter what we choose, even if it goes forward to a warrant article, it's up to the town to have their say on it.
so am I incorrect in saying that a 3-to-1 slope that is standard out there in, across the industry is more than 25%? Am I wrong
No,
about
it's
that?
my understanding that we're talking about existing land. It's a piece of land, you go walking, and here it is. There it is, and there's slopes here and there's slopes here. We're not talking about building a road and having the 3-to-1, nothing like that. But an open lot, can we build on it? Is it greater than 25% grade? That's the question. So it's not.
Trying to prevent people from destroying the land by ripping it all apart in order to get their road in, by taking a hill that's 400 feet high and making it 200 feet high,
Which is going on right now.
which is going on right
And we
now.
probably we need to get in the regulation, get a handle on that.
That's a layman's term.
And again, it's major subdivisions
I do
only.
agree, I do agree with that, that we see it on 2 projects that we've seen that they're topping the whole, cutting the whole top of the hill off. But this does also affect other people.
This is only
Yeah.
major subdivisions.
Major subs.
Major subdivisions.
4 or more buildings,
Just major
houses.
subdivisions. So
Lots.
only huge projects are gonna be impacted by this if the voters accept it.
Most towns
All we're
don't do
proposing
that,
is
yeah.
for major subdivisions to be
Major
subject to
subdivisions
this.
in new site plan review applications.
Correct.
Within the steep slope district.
Yep.
So it's not just major subdivisions.
Sorry.
But here's just a good example. If you were going down 156, right, after you go by the farms, and then you have the houses that are built up, right, you go by this little swamp, and there's another swamp that was a swamp until they took out the beaver dam. But there's 5 lots that sit there undeveloped. All those lots are straight up a mountain. They're all buildable lots. Because they're pre-existing lots, they're already there, they're 5 acres. Now, to get up to where they need to build on it, is they're going up to grade that's over 25%. But we are not limiting them to do that. That's perfectly okay. Build your driveway up the hill and do whatever you gotta do. We're just telling you that you couldn't combine those 5 lots and then destroy the hill.
All right, well,
That's kind of how you gotta look at the scenario.
Section 4 says all primary and accessory buildings and structures shall be 25 feet from ridgeline or slopes. So this applies to somebody's house that they wanna build, or building, can't be on the slope
On,
and can't have
in
a
a major
walkout basement,
subdivision.
can't have a view.
In a
On a
major
major
subdivision,
subdivision.
sure, yep. And that's existing slopes, it's not created slopes, so, but anyway, this is moving forward to public hearing. So we'll move on to the next item that I wanted to give time to. Again, we don't have any verbiage on this. We've had some discussion. It'll most likely be continued into 2025 because we have nothing drafted as a potential change. I think the HOP grant is gonna be a big help with determining this. We kept as a placeholder, ADUs, review attached versus detached. I know there's been a lot presented, a lot of discussion. I think, Mr. Moore, you said you had some new information potentially.
No, I just, we got a letter, from a guy in town on Jabig Road. And
Yeah,
I
I'll
just
go into
want-
that in a public comment.
that's right, because I just, it just shows you the multifamilies and how detrimental they are to the town, and why I was gonna explain why they are detrimental to the town.
Okay. I appreciate, yeah, we'll get to that in,
But on the ADUs,
Yes.
I will say over the past 5, 6 weeks, anytime I was with a group of our fellow citizens, I asked the question, hey, how do you guys feel about that? Not a single person said no. Not a single person said detached? No, don't do it. Everybody said, yeah, that makes sense to me.
But did they know the consequences around the whole thing?
Probably not.
'Cause most people I talk about that don't have a clue. I have to first explain what an ADU is.
Right, I do too. Yeah, and you say in-law apartment, they go, oh, yeah.
Well,
And then I'll go on and explain what my comment is when we get to that later.
Okay.
so it,
there are ADUs in town, okay? The property straight across from the Fernald Farm on Raymond Road has a barn and has an ADU in it. There's 107 properties, according to Avatar, that have
That's not what-
additional kitchens. I'm sorry, I'm boring you with facts.
No, that's not
Sorry.
what, that, we're not, the discussion is whether we do a detached ADUs, not ADUs in general. There's nothing wrong with having ADUs, those are attached ADUs.
I have proposed some verbiage for detached ADUs that I'd like to submit for review.
we took a look at it. Oh, is it, okay, I didn't see brought copies right away.
I'd probably make copies for everybody. If you give me a second, we'll produce.
This is it.
Those were, for the most part, stolen from Barrington. But several other towns were looked at. I looked at a lot of towns, not just one, to come up with some ideas. And the main piece of this is that that they can be detached, that they have to meet the setbacks in the district. Whether it's, now, there's existing lots of record, there's two different lots. There's 2 acre lots, and then existing lots, which might be a half acre or acre or whatever. But in any event, these ADUs need to meet the restrictions for the single-family house. In other words, if it's a 50-foot setback, that needs to be in a 50-foot setback. You can't take your barn in the back that's 10 feet from the property line and make an ADU out of it. So that was the main consideration that I looked at. So conversion of existing structure that does not meet the setbacks in a single-family district shall not be permitted. So if it doesn't meet the setbacks for a single-family dwelling, no. So you could put it in your garage. Some people might have a little 800 square foot ranch that they live in, and they want their kids to live out in the back, or their parents in their detached garage. That should be allowed. It's already happening in the town. There's a lot of ADUs in the town. There's a lot of multifamilies in the town that most of us don't realize how many there are. There's a lot.
Most of us do, and most of us also realize that a lot of those ADUs that are identified by the tax assessor
Yep.
have no permitting whatsoever associated with them.
100%.
Period.
And
100%.
And that is a good point, and this, so why don't they have this?
That's why I'm very confused about whether or not we should do anything about attached.
So here, you know, kind of say, Ed,
Are we
tell
there
me-
yet?
tell- we don't
Yeah.
get off conversation, because we still gotta go to our non-public, but let me just say, a house sold on on Jabig Road, right? Realtor lists the house, sold for $875,000. The town assesses at $417. This is on Jabig on 267. Why'd it go for double the price? Guy has 3 to 4 apartments in it.
Well, isn't that part of the complaint that we just got?
Yes,
That the one-
Right, but again, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that
it gets better.
this is how you start to go. You wanna go on 370 Stage Road, right? This is right next to Demon's store. There's a 4-unit apartment building owned by a company over in Dover. Assessed value 475. Tax revenue we get from 10,000. They're all 2-bedroom apartments, cause he has 11 rooms, four fixtures, which means he has 4 bathrooms in there. And he's asking 2,500. The town only makes $10,000. We lose if you put families in those apartments. Put condos in, the town actually wins. Now, like what we did over, which those 4
Well,
condos.
I think
but
we have to have
those
somewhere
places
for
go
people
on
to
there.
go, because not everybody can afford to buy a
Well,
condo.
again, the one that was done correct was the one that was next to the school. There's a 5,
Near the power lines?
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, now, the reason why they got that, because they couldn't do a development there was because of all the wetlands out back, right? But again, perfectly legal, done all through the right channels, perfectly acceptable. 100% I agree with that. We should actually minimize that, maybe so that you don't have to have 2 acres for somebody to put an apartment building like that. Maybe make it 5. But these lots aren't even that big. And so people are doing a lot of illegal ADUs. So when we start adding even more to it, now it just opens us up to even more. So I'm against having any outside ADUs under the restrictions that we leave now is the way it should be kept.
Well, the restrictions we have now are ineffective, it's not working.
Well, because people are just doing it illegally. So
No. So there's 2 things, there's several things that are occurring. So one area, and we do have a complaint that's specific property, but it brings up a good point that I brought up in the past, is our multifamily conversion section is probably pretty weak, and it's probably a loophole. Because it doesn't define what conversion is. We had one that occurred in town where it ended up, I think the intent of the conversion was that, like, these large old farmhouses, oftentimes that doesn't make sense for today's families anymore. So to try to retain those in that character of the town was to allow them to be converted into multifamily and saved that way. But our conversion, we don't define it, so basically, one that occurred in town that I know of was a tear down. They tore it down and put up. Is that on your list? Or whatever, so, so that's not, to me, that's not a conversion. That's a change of use, really, but that was, in my opinion. But again, we don't define it, so anytime you don't define something, it becomes, so I do think a future
Maybe
thing
that's
for
what we
the
should
town to
work
look at is our
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
multifamilies.
Right.
multifamily conversions. So we are not restrictive compared to multifamily. Multifamily is double everything. Multifamily conversions, I think, to me, are a big loophole for people. I mean, you could potentially do a subdivision, come back the next year and convert them all.
Yep,
Yeesh.
yep.
All right, but that's not an
To what?
ADU.
Convert them to
What's the
what?
difference?
Multi-units.
You wanted housing.
An existing house.
What's the difference?
The difference is,
But-
What's the
it's,
difference?
the difference is I have a separate building that has to meet all the setbacks and
No,
all
not
that.
multifamily
Not
conversion.
I'm
conversions.
talking about, we were talking about ADUs.
Yeah, so we're jumping topics. I do want to finish the ADU conversation first, or at least decide,
Well, here's what I do with the ADUs. If you want to build an ADU, you could build a basement and you could build the thing up top, make sure you're the 800 square feet, right? But you have 800 square feet downstairs. Why couldn't that 800 square feet become another apartment 5 years down the road? They just converted over, because we said they only did the livable space up top. They
There are-
didn't do the bottom.
There are actually provisions in the zoning ordinance and.
And people are following them. That's my point. They're not.
And in this particular one, where they actually require, a permit, an occupancy permit, and when the property is sold, that has to be reviewed again. That's what Barrington does. A lot of towns have a standard of review.
a lot of towns require that permit for, if you require owner occupancy of one of the units.
Yep.
Dover.
And I just don't wanna see the entire community penalized because you got a couple of people cheating.
I'd say it's more than a couple, but.
Yeah, but, and even that, it's
But I
not
wouldn't
up
say
to us.
I say,
But Doug, what that points out is the incapability of producing regulations that are appropriate for something we can't outlaw.
So I think your argument undermines your argument.
The-
I'm suggesting creating a path towards allowing these things to happen, And you're saying, well, people are doing it illegally. Okay, well then let's create a path for them to do it legally.
And
Like, you're kind of undermining your own argument.
that's fine.
If you don't want it, don't
But
want it, but
what
like,
it
you're undermining, you're
produces-
using someone doing it illegally as your argument for not doing it.
What it
is not
produces.
really an argument.
And I said that, well, it is an argument, we can argue that all day long. But the result of that is Nottingham becomes Dover, and I've said that before. Nottingham
Not in your
becomes
lifetime.
Dover.
Not in your
And I
lifetime.
should care about only my lifetime?
No, I'm just saying-
I'm here for planning purposes, so I've undermined yours now. So, I mean, the
The
reality
point is that it would
can
take
we do
50
it?
years before it even remotely resembled Dover. And Dover is gonna resemble Portsmouth by that point.
Wow,
So
I'd
you
like to
can't-
place a bet on that, because the way this is going,
Look at how much housing you have being built right now as is. It's trickling in
So I
because of
think-
the heavily restrictive zoning. All I suggested was detached ADU, and you jumped from detached ADUs to Dover? Come on, man, draw me that line.
No, so again,
Let's at least have,
Dover,
let's at least
and I
have
had
intellectually
one.
honest
I
debate,
like the
you know?
ADU, I was able to buy the house because of the ADU there back in 1970.
so I,
Okay,
So it benefited you, but not the next person?
Well, I
agree with
understand what the
ADUs.
difference
I
is.
just don't agree with it detached.
So
I just don't get that
our
argument.
current
It
zoning,
makes no sense.
our current zoning matches the RSA 674-73.
Yep.
674-71, sorry. So there is 674-73 that was added in later on, I think 16 and 17 that shows, where they then allowed municipalities to allow detached accessory units. So if we didn't even have ADUs in our zoning, 674-71 would apply automatically, which requires the interior door, everything else, that kind of matches our zoning. I think this is something that's important to the town, or important to continue discussion. I think we're putting the cart before the horse, doing it now, in that we just qualified for a HOP grant to engage the public on housing. This is housing, and I think, you know, me personally, I think that using that money and identifying and discussing this with the community and getting the outreach about ADUs, detached ADUs, making people understand what an ADU is and how this is, you know, in-law unit and things like that, what those mean, talking about multifamily conversions. I think that's all something that's gonna be benefited by that HOP grant.
Yeah.
So personally, for me, I
Affordable
think we're
housing.
cart before the horse this year on it. I think this is a good starting point for some discussion on it. But that's my opinion.
It was my understanding that today what we're voting on is whether or not to put these things in as warrant articles so that the townspeople can choose whether or not they want detached ADUs. It's not up to us to judge whether or not we want them, yes or no. We're going to put them on a warrant article. Is that correct?
No, it's if the board decides. Again, we hadn't, prior to tonight, had any verbiage that this board has determined for this section. We've talked about it a few times, but we didn't come up with any kind of verbiage regulations as to whether or not we were gonna move forward for it. So I think at this point, a vote, even maybe a motion, or, you know, do we continue discussion on this tonight? Or do we table it for the future? I think that would be in order before we spend more time on it tonight.
I'm going to make a motion to table our discussion of ADUs to another meeting.
I'll second that emotion.
So the motion by Mr. Stevens, motion by, and second by Mr.
Starting to
Cummings to
feel
table,
emotional. It's getting late.
table the further discussion on attached and detached ADUs. Any further discussion on the motion?
And we don't have anything presently, correct? Okay.
All those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Nay. Motion carries 5-1.
I
Again, I do
think-
think this is very
I want to
relevant.
say that I think we need to address the housing issue by allowing more housing and helping with, helping the residents of our town. And one of those things is an ADU, or multifamily dwellings, or,
We allow
multiple.
ADUs already.
What's that?
We allow ADUs already.
And again, we allow the cheapest ADUs, which are attached. The detached ADUs.
And the question is
But
housing
we've also
as
just
apartments or
tabled this
housing as
discussion.
homeowners?
So let's move forward. We've already
Yeah.
tabled this discussion. We've got things that we still have to take care of.
Mr.
so
Evans,
let's move forward.
can you email this to Alana so
12
that
minutes to do.
when this does come back up, they'll have that verbiage? that draft.
I'll put some data behind it too.
And I'm with you, Chris. My philosophy has always been, the best time to rule on something or to do something is when I have my hands on it. To keep tabling and keep pushing it back is, it's not exactly how I work.
I thought we have a whole meeting just on it, because I'll sit here for 2 hours and talk.
Yeah.
Well,
we can't do that today.
We haven't really tabled it, but again.
And again, I'm not trying to sound negative towards it, because I believe in condos in town, I believe in proper apartments in town, I do it. I mean, so I'm not against the housing and making it more affordable. People wanna own, that's why I'm very all forward having condos. I wouldn't even be a problem with the
Where
55
do those
communities.
condos go?
Let's change the ordinance so that we can actually put condos in, so when people actually own a part of their building, they own it.
They take
You know,
good care of it.
pride of
we-
ownership.
It's
We
an
have
investment.
24 up on Route 4 are selling for 400,000 apiece, which is, by the way, above affordable levels, but it's pretty close.
A house is brand new house in
And-
town,
and-
700, so.
And they're bringing in about $150,000 of tax revenue to the town, and there's people living there, and it's helping in this, a need, yet somewhere along the way, the planning board adopted something to, put a abolishment to housing in that commercial district. The commercial district is not doing anything.
Yeah, well,
So I do have a proposal to put
Okay, I'm just gonna tell you one
housing
story.
in the
Since you
80
haven't been
in
around
that
very long,
district. Yes.
I'm gonna give you a little history.
Yes.
The reason why that came in is because all the people that live on Route 4 in that residential community on one side and all the commercial that was going on the other side, all came in to complain because they didn't wanna see the lights. They didn't wanna see the traffic. They didn't wanna see all that. So they were against putting any industrial on the other side.
Let's put housing in there. Let's put elderly housing there.
So when we don't have commercial, which
Let's
gives more
put elderly
money to the town.
housing and affordable housing in that district. That's
Hey, Ed.
compatible with the residential uses that are
When you were
already up
talking
there.
about the conversions, is that this, F4?
Yeah, I was wrong about the date,
But multifamily dwelling conversions?
Yes.
That's what you were referring to, the farmhouse one? Or what was intended, the farmhouse one?
correct. But I think that's, you know, and I mentioned it when it came up before, again, we haven't seen many, but I think it just hasn't been seen. I think that's a giant loophole for the town.
Is that in here now? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying, F4?
Yeah,
I remember
we're not addressing that tonight.
No,
but
no,
I
no,
think-
I was just getting clarification that that's what he was talking about from earlier.
And again, I think that's an area.
Oh, I thought that was pretty cool.
I think so too.
Where is it?
It-
Article?
At the end of the
It's
multifamily
in the
section,
zoning,
there's
it's,
a conversion of multifamily,
It's page 9 of the zoning ordinance.
which is after the
I was looking in the
residential.
back.
So
Residential, commercial. district.
residential
Oh,
lot,
yeah, okay, yep,
conversion of buildings on residential lots in existence prior to March 30th of 2010.
yep.
You
Okay.
could convert them into up to 8 units.
50% or more. There's no square foot minimum lot size? Is that what I'm seeing?
There is a requirement that the property, the lot meets septic and well requirements. So if the land has suitable septic requirements, yes, it could withstand to have 2 units or 3 units or whatever. That's soil-based, science-based, not arbitrary numbers.
Sorry, what's our current topic of discussion? What are we going over?
Nothing at all. So I brought this up. I brought up multifamily dwelling conversions as something for the board to, you know, it's gonna come up in a minute under public comment about a specific property, which I won't list the property. But it's an area I think the board will wanna look at for 2025. But again, it's gonna get looked at anyway, would be my guess, under the HOP grant piece. Because again, we're gonna look at multifamily, we're gonna look at multifamily dwelling conversions, and we're gonna look at ADUs.
Well, here's a
Three
question
areas.
for you. So before you get on, I'm just gonna go, we won't mention the name of the public comment, but I'm gonna say something right now. Is if there's not a single building permit for any of that crap that's on that thing, that's been there, all 4 of those quote-unquote apartments or whatever, there's not a single building permit, he's not up to code.
That would
We're
be,
not,
This
we're
is,
not enforcement.
we can't enforce anything. The BOS can.
the building inspector would start that process,
You
yeah.
got it.
that is
So,
correct.
let me tell you that, stuff like this that comes up, and I feel bad for whoever bought it.
Right.
Cause they might not know. Cause the realtor might not have explained for it or haven't did their due diligence. Or the homeowner who owned it before probably, snuck it by. knowing that he did it all wrong. So somebody should pay for this action. Because it's not fair to the residents of the town of Nottingham to pay for this, because the house is assessed half of what it should be. There's this many more people coming into town, which incurs the more cost to our town and our other residents. We're paying for this illegal action.
And the septic may not be up to.
Oh, talk about it, so.
So, yeah, I mean, I've seen listings before. I think there was one on my road that, you know, prior to the people that bought it, it was being utilized as a four or five unit. Geez, I think they rented out the basement, they split the garage into 2 or 3, and it was all not up to code, all, you know, whatever, everything was attached. But
Yes.
I think that Realtor listing specified that there was no, you know, guarantee that current utilization of it was gonna be legal, and it was up to the diligence of the
That's,
buyer.
the said,
And that one
said
was-
property that we're talking about
Yes.
was listed as a multifamily.
Right. But again, that goes.
That's why they
beyond
bought
this.
it.
Well, that, the investor, who
Right.
probably did it, bought it for that reason.
Well,
But,
you know,
he
it's an
should've did his
investor,
due
or
diligence.
maybe it should be, a little more should be investigated before speculating.
Well, we did a lot of research.
called
We're
due
pretty-
diligence.
We're pretty sure it's some guy named Eddie.
Old Eddie.
Big Eddie, yeah.
Big Eddie slipped
So-
by.
You know, we don't wanna go too much.
Eddie's the
To use
neighbor.
Ed's words, we
Don't
don't wanna
get
go too much into the
confused.
weeds on this.
We had
Eddie is the neighbor.
other listed tonight.
Yeah.
I don't think
Where
there's
is
any
that in here?
additional
That
zoning
complaint?
ordinances that we're touching tonight. Site plan subdivision regulations review, again, that's gonna be 2025. I do wanna move forward with some of those and get that on the agenda early into the year. Hop grant we already discussed, budget we already went over. Does anybody else have any discussion under these sections before I move on to public comment?
No.
All right, so, just to clarify again, anything we voted on for warrant articles tonight does not mean they're gonna be a peer of warrant articles, they're gonna go for public hearing. I will work with Alana to make, and Blair to make sure we get the verbiage correct to post for, before January 5th or 7th, whatever the date is, for our very first meeting in January, for those to occur.
Will we be able to review that before it goes?
The verbiage?
Yeah.
It'll go wild, so if we don't make substantive changes,
Right.
you know, and, so after, yeah, I'm sorry, for anybody that hasn't been through this process before, and even if you have, I can review it. So basically, you have the date that you have to get for the first public hearing. If a second public hearing is anticipated, I always try to err on that side because it's better, to have that caution built in. If public comment comes in and maybe there's some non-substantive changes, you can either hold a second public hearing or you can move forward with it and close it and move it to warrant article. If substantive changes are needed, then you have to hold a second public hearing, and go from there, so,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Can I propose, elderly housing somewhere in the town? How do I go
think you
about
can ask to put it on
exactly
an
doing
agenda.
that?
You could
How do
do
we
it-
do, how do we do that?
You can do it if you, because again, I don't think we're gonna be able to do anything from this board for this year. So as a citizen, you can do a petition warrant article, to the select board. Where's your deadline? January,
Maybe you could use some of the HOP grant discussing how we can get it in there.
nope, no,
Yes.
Okay. Just,
no, I'm sorry, I was looking,
I'm just saying.
last day for voters to petition select board to include an
Yeah.
article in the town meeting
That would be
warrant.
some
provided
money that we can use for that.
Article proposed as well. Done. Okay, so I think
But-
January 9th.
And
As a
also,
planning
What
board,
is the deadline for?
No, I lied.
Oh.
Wednesday, December 13th, last day to accept petitions to amend zoning ordinance,
whoa,
historic district ordinance or
Wednesday,
building code.
December
December
13th?
13th?
That's a Friday, right? Because
Yeah,
today is
I-
Wednesday, December 11th.
This is 2023.
That's the 23 calendar, right?
This is, yeah, sorry.
Today's Wednesday.
That'll do it.
Isn't there a possibility that we could get it on an agenda for the planning board to discuss it?
sure, you can do that.
Yeah, we should
Right,
definitely
so you would
discuss it,
reach out to
yes.
Alana and see if you can get it on the, and she'll get it past the chairman, see if we can get it on the agenda, we can talk about it.
To me, that's a commercial adventure, and Route 4 is the perfect place for it.
There you go.
I don't
Blair, do you have
understand the
SB2
problem.
schedule?
Okay, the conversation.
I
is over.
don't, I'm sorry, Ed.
No, it's okay, I thought I had it. I
Clarify that 55
have
Cleary as a
it.
commercial property.
don't have access to internet.
Even
As
though
long
they're
as you
gonna
get the
give,
special exception, it doesn't matter.
All right, so we
the
got
zoning board's gonna give it to them. so
couple
why
more
not?
items to go through.
I understand, but I also read the ordinance and see,
It doesn't outlaw it anywhere.
We still have a non-public to deal with too, so,
Yeah.
so public comment,
thank
We
you
had-
for your comments, but
It
I
was today.
disagree.
received-
I know what you're saying, I understand what you're saying.
we received
there
a,
are times-
Hey,
That would be
hey,
appropriate
excuse me,
for
we're having a meeting.
sorry. So we received a it was to the building inspector, but also copied to the planning board, a complaint about a property that is being utilized as most likely a 4-unit, does not meet setbacks, doesn't appear to have gone through any kind of process for it. Apparently, there's been issues with the property.
Where is that?
So again, I'm specifically not reading the street name or number, but, and then they also provided some comments saying, you know, for the planning board and zoning boards, as we discussed relative to concerns about loopholes in the ordinance relating to multifamily conversions, as I addressed this as well in the complaint, so they were indicating that some of the changes that they mentioned that they would like to see in the multifamily section would be for conversions. It says, it appears that the standards for conversions are weak and should be addressed to bring them more in congruence with the new development guidelines, i.e. only allowed where setbacks are already in compliance with the new guidelines. So they feel like it's affecting abutters, it's further spoiling rural quality, negatively impacting surrounding property values, and peace and quiet for the entire road. So again, this is, part of this is not to do with us, we're not enforcement, it's the building inspector, but some of the comments about, you know, multifamily conversions, would be a thought for the board to consider as we move,
So we should recognize a loophole and try to close it.
or talk about it and,
Recognize it and see if there's something that we
Yeah.
should do about it.
yep,
Another agenda item.
yes. That's, we have 2 sets of minutes, October 23rd and November 13th. It says November 20th on the agenda, but it's November 13th. The one thing is, obviously, everybody notices that these are now being done by a new individual. I think they've captured things great. They capture the main discussion points, and it doesn't go into, you know, excessive detail when it's not needed, just the pertinent pieces, so.
I have got a few edits to the October 23rd minutes.
Me too.
You wanna go first?
No, go.
All right, first one is that Mr. Cummings is listed in the members present. I believe he was absent. And also Mr. Severns is listed both in the members present and members absent, but he should be removed from the
Dual personality.
That's right. You're both here and not here. You're Schrodinger's cat.
I was there.
I missed one meeting, and we're
Doug
still
was
talking
not.
about it.
Next one is line 64, the very last word. I think were is better than would. That they were not going to engage in a wildlife study rather than they would not going to. Next one is line 140. I believe the last name of the person listed is incorrect, and the others present lists the correct name of the person. The last name, I believe, should be Chesnakovich, spelled in the others present section.
Well, mine is, I'm so sorry.
It's line 140. So the last name,
CZ.
Oh, okay,
EID should be changed to CZESN.
got it, yep.
Yeah. All right, line 144, strike the apostrophe from its, it should be possessive. Line 159, there is a space between front and age, so it should be frontage instead of front age. And the very last one I've got is line 261 on the last page. It says that the Conservation Commission was hiring an intern, but they actually received a grant to hire an intern. They haven't gotten to that part yet. So changing was hiring to received a grant to hire. That covers my edits.
Mr. Stebbins, did you have additional?
You got
Any other edits on the minutes of October 23rd? So we can either tackle those, or I'd say let's just do this in one motion if we can. How about November 13th? Any edits on those? Seeing Hearing none.
No, it was grammatically
All
perfect.
right, so if anybody wants to make a motion to approve the minutes of November 13th and the minutes of October 23rd as amended, that'd be great.
So moved?
Second that motion.
So a motion by Mr. Severns, second by Mr. Stevens to approve the minutes of October 23rd as amended and the minutes of November 13th, 2024. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain. So that motion carries 5-0-1. All right. Quick, we'll go around the board for updates and then we can, after that. So, Mr. Severns.
CIP, we're just about done. The CIP this year got massaged quite a bit, probably not necessarily totally appropriately, but anyway, it's gonna, not all the numbers are there yet, but should be done, I think it's in 2 weeks.
Are there any new items relevant to existing impact fees or that would be asked for potentially new impact fees? That would be, so anything new, that's new additive to fire department, since we have impact fee, rec, that's,
I think what you'll find is that the impact, the items that are listed presently don't come into play necessarily for impact fees until next year.
yeah, so what I was saying is that, obviously we could start.
Well,
If there's something in the CIP that, like, say like in the CIP is identifying, start putting money into an escrow for a new police station because of, and some of that's because of growth, to support the additional growth that's been in the town, the board could then discuss adding an impact fee, which would go through public hearings for that piece of it.
I can tell you the word
And then we
growth,
could add it now versus,
the term growth, I don't believe was used in any of these submissions of information. The big one is an ambulance. But that's kind of way out there. I don't know what to say about the school, but
yeah,
There isn't-
they're separate anyway, so that's,
Yeah.
What are some of the other
Police
items
department.
on the CIP, just out of your head?
A new grader in 5 years or 3 years
Yeah.
for 400,000.
trucks, police cars every year.
Okay,
Well, actually, theirs is covered under their budgets. That'd actually be, more fire department, highway trucks.
yeah.
It's capital improvement, right? So we talked
And
about
one of the- one of
police
the-
station?
Police station is on there, but right now it's only in there as a study. It's not necessarily, it can be included as impact fees, but the study, so far it doesn't, growth is not there. It's not, the department has grown, but not necessarily because of the community growing.
Got it.
Never, any discussion at all about this building?
A lot of discussion about this building, but most of the stuff on this building is maintenance.
Okay. One day in the future, in an ideal world, we'd love to build a real community center. Take this thing down and build a real building.
I hope that never comes up.
No? Why?
That's gonna be expensive.
Oh, it's expensive, but you've got people living with rats over here. There's just a long
That
story.
is not true.
It's not, they're gone?
Yeah, we've actually done quite a bit with the rodent control.
Yeah.
Oh, running control, okay, good.
I mean, we've.
The back building that's open to the public, critter land, yeah, I had some stuff back there, but it's sealed off, so.
And the fact that we cleared out all the living space, because they gutted the whole place now, so
Right.
there isn't walls for them to live in, there isn't insulation, there isn't, I mean, we gutted it down, so we took the place out. And then we actually sealed off the back too, to make it even more tight, and then we had, rodent controls and things here for those issues. The
Shrubs,
against the side of the buildings, we took all those out, so. I
That's
mean, we've
improved a
done-
lot. Yeah.
the building for that, so, did you notice this room?
Yes.
Yeah, did this get painted?
Yes.
Thought so.
Yeah, right. It's
Looks
bright.
nice. It looks sharp.
All of those
Okay,
things are maintenance.
did you see the floor too? How there's a shine to it?
I do now?
Well, because, yeah, we had a whole company
No,
come
you
in
mention
and.
it.
Yeah.
The multi-purpose room floor, there's been a lot of stuff going on in here.
So can you just recapitulate, CIP, as I understand, is community improvements that are
No,
attributed to.
capital
Capital improvements, thank you, attributed to like new housing, so if we say, hey, we're gonna add 10 new houses?
No.
What triggers,
It,
It's non-reoccurring expenses. So it's not electric bills, it's a new roof. Stuff that
A grader that we'll buy, but then we'll have the grader for 30 freaking years.
typically
so-
it's stuff that has a lifespan past like
10 years,
10, is that what it is, 10 years?
10 years.
alright, but isn't that the basis for impact fees and that the
It
impact?
can be.
It can
yes.
be, okay.
It can
They
be.
go hand in hand, so impact fees, you
It
can't
used to
have
be-
impact fees without a CIP.
It used to
Okay.
be, it used to be accomplished by the planning board. When I was here before, we used to do this. I don't think we did a good job at it, but we did it, and we put something out there, and it gets published in the town report. And it lists, it tries to list those wishes, if you will, that the departments want. And it's all the departments, so there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Library wants, they're doing an ADU kind of deal, so, no, I'm sorry, ADA kind of deal with walkways for the basement. But, so, you know, it's those types of things.
Yeah.
And it gets tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we have budget people on that committee also. And so the committee people are trying to, they look at it from the standpoint of that particular number is never gonna fly. We're gonna have to cut that. That's good, that's the budget committee's job, not this. Our job is to relate what the information is that the departments are looking for. So,
And if it does get to the pact on there, we can change
Yep.
the impact fees and where they're directed to. As we did with the fire department, when we paid off the fire department building, we didn't need them to give it, so we moved those funds to a different place where they're going into. And I believe they went to rec, where they needed them, we switched some out to go there. So if the police department ever, let's say, wanted to build a building, and it actually came to the fact that a $3 million police, and again, this is not happening, but I'm saying, if that ever came up, we could change our impact fees from here and say, hey, we're gonna X amount, this much of impact fees to go
to them.
to that payment. But you have to get to the stage of actually getting it to the voters to approve whether we do it. Because the school could have used some, I believe, some impact fees
Yep, they
on
did.
their addition, but that got voted down, but that 3 million they wanted to put the extra buildings off to the side, since there were new structures, could have used their impact fees if it went forward to help pay for it. Still would have been a big burden on the tax people, but that's how the system works.
Yeah, impact fees are there, and it works well when you have the fire station with a bond and things like that, because you had a known number, but again, the current residents are investing quite a bit, and then they're investing quite a bit, what they see as potential growth and the need for potential additional capacity. And then anybody that moves in after that is getting the benefit of that, but they're not paying for it. So impact fees can help offset in certain areas of saying, okay, well, we knew we're gonna need an extra officer, we need extra space because of the anticipated growth from 5,000 to 6,000 residents. So that you can calculate out, so it's not the whole cost, it's a proportion part of it, and that's why you have a third party work with it to come up with those numbers and justify it.
Right. But to answer your question, I didn't see anything on there that was remarkable from that standpoint.
Correct.
Thank you for doing that again.
No problem.
Mr. Evans?
Nope.
Mr. Moran? Select board's probably been pretty busy.
We're all about the budget.
Yeah.
It's all about the budget. I mean, we're pretty close to where we're gonna be for our 4%. So hopefully we won't have to go to a default budget. We do have another meeting coming up on Monday. We'll be interviewing at that meeting, 2 new legal services. We haven't decided to lose, the present legal company that we're doing, but we are interviewing 2 others. And we'll make a decision on whether we stay or we move to one of these 2 others for legal services for the town. But again, budget's been our big thing, the last couple meetings, most of our time's been. And I think we're actually doing pretty well with it. But, you know, where we are today and when it comes to the vote, whether we go to the default or not. And you can see some of that in our meetings where we've changed, you know, the warrant articles to cut things off those to help make sure those get better chance of getting voted yes, you know, towards the budget, so.
So you're saying that you're within the, you're gonna be at the 4? within
Oh, yeah,
the
we're gonna
4.
be there.
So there's no need to jump to 6?
Well, if we went to 6, we could get a lot more stuff done that we need to get done.
But you're doing
We're
it at 4.
restricting it. Well, if we get 4, if they go to default, then we'll be, next year we'll be in real problems if we hire new officers,
I got it.
so, and then especially with the highway department, you know, one of the big thing about highway department and their funding, you know, we got roads to redo, roads to, you know, that we're supposed to get done, that didn't get done, that need to get done. But then you also have to wonder about, well, winters arrive. Winter's a major expenditure onto this town on maintenance, where if we don't get any snow in the winter, we'll have a great excess budget in the highway department. If we get
And a lot of salt.
but if we get 6 major storms or 8 major storms, you know, like, you know, that's gonna be a huge detriment to their budget. And then especially if we don't, with this weather like this, 50 degrees day, pouring rain, tomorrow night it's gonna be below freezing. So what's standing water is now turning ice. That means we're gonna use salt, all the dirt roads have to be re-sanded. I mean, that's more time, that's more labor, that's after hours.
Every city in town deals with that though, right?
But again, this is where you're
storms.
limited on where we
Right.
don't have an unlimited fund, so you're trying to keep it and support all the other.
And we're operating off of 2023's budget.
So it's tough, but that's where we're talking about budget. And
Potentially.
right now, I feel good about what we've discussed and how it's gonna look at. You know, but again, we'll see what happens. I mean, there was a meeting too, that was nothing to do with the select board the other night, about a couple, petition warrant articles that, people were getting to sign. If you read Doug Bates' thing, you'd see that on there. And, we had a great, holiday parade on Saturday. If you weren't able to attend, I know some of us were here. It was actually, the turnout was really good I mean, I'm always surprised to see how many people show up to it. Really makes you feel warm about Nottingham and, you know, what people think of the town, because they want to take the time to come to see these activities, so. It was great, and the program that the rec department does in organizing it, the girls they were here working Saturday. You know, they were here early in the morning, they stay late, and they do it all for the community. I mean, obviously getting paid, but, you know, they're taking their Saturdays out, because this is when people in the community come out. That's why I think, you know, the support of the rec department is really important, because, again, they do so much.
Isn't that who we painted the room for?
Well,
Because
yeah.
they're moving in about 4 weeks, so.
Sometime they will be, right? But
Yeah.
that's part of the things, yeah. I mean, you could at least before you move into it, you might as well paint it.
That's right.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much where I have to go. We have a meeting on Monday.
Perfect. I'll send a letter, just, I'm sure it doesn't, just in case it helps, but I'll send a letter of support to the BOS about the HOP grant that the planning board would support. the town
Oh, and
secretary.
that, the letter from the citizen,
Yep.
um,
That'll-
that's already been, I talked to Alan about it already today. Who's gonna talk to Dale about it, and then we'll see what we do for actions on stuff like that.
Yep.
Blair, perhaps you can provide, and I'll look up too, I don't know if I get the same thing Blair gets, some detail on the HOP grant that they can look at as far as disbursements and process and what has to happen with that.
Yeah, I think that's a
schedule.
deliverable probably for one of our January meetings, either to us or to the select board is, you know, I know you said you'll be talking with Jen, says, and, you know, reviewing that and
Yep.
giving us a bit more information as to that.
And I'm very confident that we're
Because
gonna.
in the approval had had all, you know, some deadlines and stuff, so, you know, that plan and process, will probably be generated from SRPC for us. I don't have anything.
I would like to jump back and make.
Oh, boy, no.
I can't go without saying something. Blair from the SRPC has been pushing this HOP grant package through, which is gonna update our master plan and got a grant of, what, $31,000 to update, so you know, any public input on, you know, how you'd like our town to look and feel and, changes, that might be, a great time that we're gonna be starting to look at that. So, that's a great, thank you for all your work on that and effort and,
thanks.
success. Thank
Right
you.
on, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. Yep. Happy to do it.
Do you have anything to add, Drew? Let me think, no, I'm okay.
No, I mean, I was gonna talk about the hop grant, but, nope. We've covered that. Otherwise, yeah, we're just heading into the end of the year. I'll just point out that every 10, 15 years, I think it is, SRPC does their comprehensive plan for the agency, for the entity that is SRPC. And we are getting ready to start on that. And the first part is gonna be substantial outreach. So, just kind of FYI, keep your ears open, do what you can to participate, whether it's in, like a public outreach event or a survey, but that's gonna start happening for the 18 member communities, which you are part of. Dues paying or not, you are part of the community and, part of the membership, so, be a part of this, because it is, it's required, but it's also important, so. That's about it.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, if there's nothing else, I would suggest a motion to enter into non-public, and to close the public hearing, and then to, the public meeting, and enter into non-public to review, town council response regarding conditional approval of case 2024-014 SUB, 12-month LLC,
And immediately adjourn the meeting,
and then immediately adjourn.
close the meeting after.
Once the non-public is closed and the minutes are either sealed or not sealed.
Okay.
And that'd be a motion.
Do you know the paragraph number?
It's legal, so it's. No, it's legal E? Crap.
Sorry,
It's legal I?
A1, isn't it? A1 something, right? I don't have that.
This is where we need to,
Should know
she's
it.
got them memorized, you know,
Yeah.
knows what they all are.
No, I was hoping we were provided that information by the lawyer too. No. Just-
Is this on this
hint.
complaint, or is this on something
No,
else?
no.
It just, we had a conditional approval
I have it in
of
my
a plan.
Do you have the minutes for the last meeting where it goes to non-public? 'Cause it's gonna say A:2.
We could go into, for planning board?
No, for select board, because it's listed out at the bottom of our meetings. But I believe
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
it's always on every agenda, we have it in there, whether we go or not. I believe legals, I wanna say it's E, but.
No, I'm questioning myself. I don't think we need to cite the RSA, but it's in regards to, non-public to review, legal response. (91A2) No,
91A, that's correct, yeah?
91A1 something.
I think.
I think we just say 91A.
91A,
91A3.
Three?
There you go.
I make a motion, we go into non-public session in accordance with 91, RSA 91 Alpha 3, for legal update.
Perfect.
Motion by Mr. Sevens, second by Mr. Moran. We do have to take a roll call vote for non-public. Mr. Sevens?
Aye.
Severance?
That's okay. Aye.
Mr. Evans? Mr.
Hi, Joe
Moran?
Warren.
I had Veal.
Hi, Drew Stevens.
Hi, Doug Cummings.
There you go.
That motion carries 6-0. We are in non-public, and then we will adjourn afterwards, so